Hello everyone and welcome back to Backlot Banter, your favorite box office prediction show on the internet. I'm your host Tanner Extra, joined as always by my good friend and fellow box office enthusiast, Tucker Hazel.
Ballyhooer.
Yes, we are getting into some predictive box office ballyhoo here today. We are future projecting. We're using our Madam Web abilities.
Oh yeah, that comes out today.
It does to sort of look into the future and see
timely reference.
What could possibly be the top 10 highest grossing films at the domestic box office for the rest of the year.
Oh yeah. And not only that, but we're going to be breaking down each of the major studios, which films they're putting out, and how we really think that they're going to fare or contribute to the market, what our general vibes are going into this year before seeing 99% of the movies. We've seen a scant handful of really crappy January releases.
We have.
But Tanner,
yeah,
it's predictions time.
This
Okay. Is going to be fun because we largely have a similar prediction.
We have the same 10 movies.
We have the same 10 movies, slightly different order, which does give us, basically the same kind of thing to work with.
Right.
Like, really, when it comes down to the end of the year, we can't even say like, oh, you had that, I didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be about placement,
right.
Which is terrifying because this is a pretty hard batch of movies to guess.
Yes, because it is, as many people have sort of offered up, an odd year. We don't have a lot of offerings from box office mainstays like Disney, as we'll get into, but especially Marvel Studios is really kind of taking a break year.
Yes.
Aside from Deadpool 3, there are no DCEU films, or DCU films for that matter.
Actually, when was the last time one of those made the top 10? I guess Black Adam did, but usually they don't anyway.
But, there is, there's a Pixar, there's a couple live-action Disneys, or there's a live-action Disney, a Disney animation. There's some usual players, I would say. Yeah. But in recent years, we've sort of learned that, are they still the usual players?
Yeah, and that's what makes this really interesting to talk about, especially the order of the films that we have. And we're going to go through my top 10 right now, which is from my number 10 to number 1. I have Twisters at the bottom, Moana 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Joker, Folie, Deux, Wicked Part 1, Dune Part 2, Mufasa the Lion King, Inside Out 2, Deadpool 3, and Despicable Me 4.
Sorry, Tucker, what movie? Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We're less than a week from that being retitled. Yes. It hasn't set in yet.
That's right.
Also, there's no title on the poster.
There is not.
It just has a little heart emblem thing.
Now, Tucker, tell me a little bit about your thought process here.
Okay, my process was pretty mathematical on this one. I went through each of the movies that I expected to make. I think my low bar was 150 to 200 million domestic, and then I went and calculated, because for me it's a lot easier to predict what the worldwide gross of the movie is going to be. Now, I said that last year, and I made predictions for every movie released last year. I was incredibly fucking wrong. I was exceptionally fucking wrong. So the likelihood is I'll probably be that way again this year. But I went through, I predicted what is each of these going to make at the worldwide box office. Then I looked at similar films and then took that gross and broke it down by the percentage of what those kind of films usually make domestically versus internationally. And then I just put them in the order. And so there wasn't really any tweaking that I did. I didn't really be like...
Tucker was not tweaking when he was making those lists.
I took this pretty seriously. Yeah. In that I believed in the math that I was doing.
All right.
I'm trying to go as little on vibes as I can. Of course, the basic instinct is vibe. If I'm like, okay, Inside Out 2 is going to make 800 million. That's a prediction.
Is it vibes, or is it just I recognize the world in which we live?
I do.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see when we go to yours if you do.
Okay, exactly.
But why don't we go over yours and then talk about the ones we have different? Because we are operating with the exact same 10 films.
Sure. All right. So I also have numbers here that I pulled out as well. Okay. Should we go over We'll go over those after I recap. So yeah, I have the same 10 as mentioned. My number 10 is Twisters. Number 9, Dune Part 2. Number 8, Sonic 3. Number 7, Joker, Folie, Deux. Number 6, Moana 2. Number 5, Mufasa the Lion King. Number 4, Wicked Part 1. Number 3, Inside Out 2. Number 2, Deadpool and Wolverine. And number 1, Despicable Me 4.
Yeah. And we actually have 4 of the 5 same top 5.
Exactly.
One of the only major differences in our ordering is that you have a lot more faith in Wicked and I have a lot more faith in Dune 2.
Yes. So,
you have marginally more faith in Wicked than I do.
Okay, let's talk. I think this will be interesting. Let's talk about the top 3.
Great.
Because we have those the exact same.
Yeah. And with these, it feels to me like these are the easiest to predict or safest to predict will make a lot of money based on the time slots they're coming out in, based on the history of their series and how much money these series have made. I feel pretty good about those top 3.
Okay. Tucker, how much money will Despicable Me 4, the movie that we are predicting...
Let's go through your numbers because I'm finding mine.
Okay. Tucker,
I'm not in the same place that I thought they were.
I predict that Despicable Me 4, the highest grossing film of 2024, will make $425 million domestically and will be the only film this year to crack $1 billion internationally.
Okay. Now, for me, I have that exact same prediction in terms of it being the only one that I feel safe predicting will make over $1 billion. I think, 2 or 3 out of 5 of the Despicable Me / Minions movies have made $1 billion. So it's a pretty safe prediction, especially as animated films, big animated films, continue to be some of the safer movies to predict making a good amount of money, especially from Illumination. But so I have it making 400 domestic, and so even at my number 1, that puts me at slightly lower of a bar.
Right.
Total money, how much they're making out of 1.2. So we're basically operating in the same range.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I have it at number 1, really, and you know why I threw that 425 figure out, even though that would be the highest grossing Despicable Me universe film.
Yeah.
I believe Minions: Rise of Gru holds that title right now at like 375,
and it's definitely not the highest grossing of those movies.
Oh, sorry. I meant domestically.
No, I know. But it still stands. It's not the total highest grossing of those movies.
No,
which
it's not.
Shows that the Despicable Me split, or the Minions split in terms of where the money is made domestic and internationally, breaks down in a sort of a different way.
It does. But my thing here is is Despicable Me 4 going to be the real number 1, or is it just the safest? I think it's somewhere in between, because if you look at the July release calendar, and we'll be breaking it down studio by studio here pretty quick. Despicable Me 4 has one hell of a run in for it.
Sure.
It comes out on July 3rd.
Yeah, and they always come out for 4th of July.
And there is kind of nothing else coming out in July. I mean, Deadpool 3 is end of July, and that is a rated R MCU film. Yeah. So if you look, and then Twisters comes out like the week before. So I'm just like, there's no competition. Inside Out 2 will still be in theaters. That's going to be the big thing. It will have been out for 2 going on 3 weeks at that point. Yeah. I don't know. But
I think the two of them can coexist, especially by the point of Inside Out 2 being out for that long, and also Pixar movies having good legs.
Yeah.
I think the two can coexist, and I think that splitting them up by 2 or 3 weeks is actually pretty healthy in terms of giving a pop and then waiting a little bit and giving another pop.
Yeah, I think so too. Do you have any thoughts on Despicable Me 4, the number 1 spot there?
It's just safe. It's just comfortable. It's not exciting that Despicable Me 4 will make a bunch of money. The only thing that is mildly interesting to me is that Gru has a baby now. There's a Gru Jr. Grunier. But yeah, it just is up there. And frankly, I think that to me applies for most of all of my top 4 is that these are mostly based off of what the market was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
All of these are sequels to movies that were massive, but pre-pandemic. Despicable Me 3, $1 billion in 2017. Deadpool 2. Neither Deadpool movies have made $1 billion, but very big deal in 2018.
Yep.
For Deadpool 2. Inside Out, very big deal for modern Pixar.
Yep.
Lion King 2019 made $1 billion. And so I'm just basing off of, it's been so long since so many of these, except for Despicable Me, but that doesn't seem to really matter.
Right.
That people are going to be interested in going back to theaters for the big things that they recognize that were huge, not a super long time ago, but a long enough time ago to where it's like, man, it's been a long time since I've seen Inside Out.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, Deadpool, remember how cool that was?
And talk about the thing we're going to do here. I'm going to peel back the veil a little bit here. I think what the audience will be looking at right now, since I'm editing this, is I'm going to make a collaborative sort of thing. Sure. I'll even out sort of our placements and our predictions for how much money they'll make domestically. So that's what you're looking at right now, audience, just so you know. So let's move on to number 2, which we think will be Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yep.
I have $400 million domestically for Deadpool and Wolverine.
I've got 360.
Okay.
So we're not that far off. And then what's your total, worldwide total?
I think I have worldwide total. I paid less attention to in these, but I said 800.
I'm exact same for me. Okay. 800. Yeah, but I just erred on the side of the Deadpool movies actually have a pretty solid international split.
Yes,
like it's like 60% or something like that. So 360 felt like, frankly, even for me, edging a little bit farther into the domestic market than the other ones were. But so what's your reasoning for 400? Because that's a lot higher than those other two.
It is. So yeah, Deadpool 2 ended up making about $325 million. Yeah. And I just think, speaking of how Despicable Me 4 has a long run, Deadpool and Wolverine has the entire month of August to itself.
Of course it does.
August is famously like the slowing down period for people going to see movies. But if you put out... Wait, I don't know if we've ever seen something like this where they're putting out like a big marquee superhero movie last week of July.
Yeah, superhero movies, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. Tentpole movies, no, because last year was last week of July, Barbie and Oppenheimer were like very at the end of July. Yep. And that, obviously, both of those held.
Actually, the last week of July was Haunted Mansion, which we all know was a massive hit. But yeah, of course. I mean, I think that there is an interest in this. I mean, there was a lot of talk about how it was the highest, most viewed trailer of all time. Is that really true?
Kind of bullshit.
Because they're counting Super Bowl numbers, and not everyone who is watching the Super Bowl is seeking out the trailer. That's kind of the thing there. But even so, I think it's still at like 265 million views online from people seeking it out or watching it on Twitter or whatever.
It's big. Yeah.
Just not number one. So, yes, I feel confident. I do feel apprehensive at the same time because this would be a stellar performance for a rated R film.
Yeah.
Unheard of in terms of, box office success, landing at number 2 at the domestic box office.
Yes. And also, it would easily be in the top 3 rated R movies
ever. Yes.
In terms of how high they're grossing. I think that what's interesting about this is it is rated R. It'll be interesting to see how far they lean into that because it is also being marketed as a marquee Marvel movie. And this is a totally unknown convergence of factors. Is the only MCU movie of the year, one of the first MCU movies to specifically established X-Men characters, which are a huge draw.
Of course.
Deadpool previously being a huge draw. Deadpool colliding with MCU and TVA stuff and making fun of the MCU, huge draw. But also, it's rated R. Rated R is the only thing that in my mind holds us back from maybe being like one of the highest grossing movies of the MCU or whatever. I don't really know how high it's going to go.
Yeah.
But and I know this would have been sacrilege, and I'm glad they're sticking to it being rated R, but if they had made it a PG-13, Deadpool goes into the MCU and has Wolverine alongside him, there's no fucking question this is number 1.
Yeah, I mean, there were pitches, of course, or something like that, where you just, he knows that he's being bleeped when he swears or stuff that. Yeah. But they do...
Like a very Deadpool Christmas or whatever.
Exactly. They are staying true to the sort of spirit of the character.
Which is good.
And keeping it rated R. But in terms of
says pegging in the trailer.
He says pegging in the trailer, of course, and it's very funny, and he's look at my balls and what have you. Anyway, I don't know.
Tanner's not 17 anymore.
I'm not.
So this humor doesn't get him going.
Yeah. Anyway, and then Deadpool would make some joke about what does get him going. I don't know. It's the easiest thing in the world to write a Deadpool joke. Inside Out 2, Tucker. Number 3. Is it Disney Plus? Is that what's giving us the hesitancy here?
For what? For being number 1?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, it's just that there's not that question about Despicable Me. There's not the question of will people wait to see this on streaming because the Illuminations movies don't have any history of hitting streaming very quickly. I mean, I don't even think Migration is on streaming yet. It's been almost 2 months. But also, it's very close, and so I'm not. My number worldwide and domestic split is 780 total and 330 domestic.
I have 375, 750.
Okay. So you're definitely leaning a little more to a domestic market there.
Yes, I think so. And just looking, it just pulled up the box office receipts for the first film in 2015, made 355 domestically, 500 international for a grand whopping total of around 850.
Yeah, which is really crazy. Actually.
Exactly.
And so we're both actually not severely undercutting this, but significantly undercutting it.
I think we are.
Like 100 million less.
I mean, ultimately for me, it's the thing of Pixar has been has been underperforming. Disney as a conglomerate has been underperforming.
Yeah.
Again, as we'll get to, they have less films going out this year, so maybe they're going to really dive into sort of marketing this, making sure people view this as a theatrical event.
Yeah.
But it's going to be hard to right the ship, I think, especially when it comes to kids' family programming, as opposed to something like Deadpool 3, where you're like, I watch, people are like, I watch Inside Out and Moana on Disney Plus. I don't watch the Deadpool movies on Disney Plus.
Well, are they on Disney Plus?
They are now.
Yeah.
But like that's what Disney Plus is. It's throw it on for your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it isn't necessarily. It's hard to right the ship in terms of where the direction the ship has been going the last few years. But I don't know. I almost feel like this is a different ship.
Okay.
If we're continuing our boat analogies here, our seafaring analogies.
Yo-ho.
Because this is the first time since Toy Story 4 and Frozen 2 that we're getting a sequel to a majorly successful film.
Mm-hmm.
Lightyear's the only one that's a little bit of a question mark.
It's not really a
count
sequel.
Disney Pixar stuff. But Inside Out is big. Has only gotten bigger through being very popular on Disney Plus.
Right.
Disney and Pixar count it among their highest, most popular current franchise, especially the newer ones.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also the ship is being righted.
Yes.
Wish was more successful than Strange World. Elemental was way more successful than all the previous Pixar movies. True. And so I think that the ship already being righted, especially by Elemental, if we're talking in the Pixar wheelhouse, and then this being the first time, we have nothing to compare it to in terms of, it's not like, Toy Story 5 came out 2 years ago and flopped at the box office.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's indicative of sort of our nihilism on Disney as a whole.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, if we're explicitly talking about the negatives of the third highest grossing film of the year.
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, and also kind of the hesitancy for this year as a whole is because everything feels like it could be either solidly okay or pretty big.
Yeah.
I don't expect Inside Out 2 to match the first one or surpass it.
I do have it making more domestically, frankly, because I just think like it makes sense to me that I only have it making like $20 million more domestically, which is ultimately not much, especially if you factor in like inflation and stuff like that.
Then it would still be less.
Exactly, but. Regardless, I think also it's important to note that like this movie came out in 2015. It's been 9 years since then. The target audience for Inside Out is now kind of like the prime our age going to movies kind of people.
Yeah, and also it's not like the fan base that exists for younger people because they've been watching on Disney Plus.
Exactly.
And so I think actually when we talk about which films I think could actually be bigger than I'm even predicting, factoring in the popularity of that first movie and it having such a solid window, and the ship being righted and it being a sequel and all of that, I think that the chances is actually bigger than we're expecting. But I'm playing it safe.
I just think that there's also the issue of Despicable Me 4 has the high ground on it. It comes out 2 weeks later, so it can kind of come in and sort of scoop away some of the rewatch value for families, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
because I'm sure Despicable Me 4 will be way more rewatchable than Inside Out 2.
Hey, I can. And what do your kids want? Emotions in a sad bit or Minions and Baby?
Yeah, AI jokes.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so Tucker, now I have Wicked at number 4.
Sure.
You have Mufasa at number 4.
Okay.
We've got our first sort of disagreement here.
One of the few.
Yeah. Should I go? Do you want to go first for Mufasa, or should I go first?
Since you were
Wicked?
just talking about Inside Out, my numbers for Mufasa at my number 4 spot are 620 worldwide, 320 domestic.
Okay.
Now, what are your Wicked numbers?
My Wicked numbers are 350, and I just need to hang on. I need to bump up.
That's not right.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't really pay attention much to the international.
This is also one that you changed since the Super Bowl.
Yes, it is.
So actually, talk about Wicked and why your faith in it has increased so much.
So.
Because I didn't tweet this since the Super Bowl came out.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So yeah, I'll just be putting the domestic numbers up on screen too, so just everyone has that. So my thing is that this was the most searched for trending trailer after the Super Bowl. I also think, and I had this realization a couple days ago, looking at the past several years, the number one film at the domestic box office, things like Barbie, things like Top Gun Maverick, It is stuff that is obviously high quality, and I'm not saying that Wicked Part 1 looked especially high quality to me. But I think it's also stuff that doesn't necessarily fall in like, this is the number 4 in the series. This is this is a sequel to something. Yeah. It is something that has a glint of originality to it. Yeah. Now, of course, Barbie is based on an IP. Top Gun Maverick is literally a legacy sequel, but it's not like Top Gun 6 or anything like that, or Barbie 3. I think Wicked Part 1, and as far as I can tell, they are marketing it just as Wicked, by the way.
Yes.
Which is important.
But in the trailer, there's no Part 1.
Exactly.
Which does decrease the question marks that we were having beforehand of, will it being Part 1 confuse people or make them less interested in the project as a whole? But they are issuing that, which is better for the movie and for the theatrical marketplace.
Yes. I just feel that given the track record, this feels like something that's gonna be big for the, I hate to use this word, but like the normie market, okay? They're like, oh, Wizard of Oz, okay. I've heard of Wicked the musical. It hasn't been really, I'm not. It's not fresh in my mind like it was maybe 10 years ago, but that I think helps it for going to see it in the theater. And they're like, holy shit, Ariana Grande's in this movie. She's a great singer. I love her music, and it's got a prime Thanksgiving holiday box office slot that can really extend itself into December. I think it's also, you look at something like, it's not something that's targeting the same sort of like family market or male-dominated superhero market or anything like that. Sure. It's more female skewing in terms of its audience, which is where we saw something like Barbie really take off.
Yeah, and another thing that I think does contribute to Wicked, it's on my list. I have it at number 6.
Yeah.
But to me being faithful that this will be successful is that it's not like we've been getting nostalgia based on Wizard of Oz shoved down our throat for a long time. And so when you say it's got that glimmer of originality, it's because, so there was Oz the Great and Powerful.
Right.
Frankly, people don't remember that.
No, absolutely.
It had no fucking impact.
No.
But Wizard of Oz is still something with its imagery that holds a lot of importance to people.
They put Dorothy, Tin Man, Scarecrow, Lion in the trailer with the wizard. I was like, I don't know what Wicked the musical is really about plot-wise, frankly. I'm like, are they a part of the musical, or is that purely just like, hey, Wizard of Oz imagery?
Yeah. And I mean, frankly, that's how I felt when I was watching it.
Yeah.
Hey, I think I recognize Green City and Yellow Street and all that stuff. So I think this will be big, especially because I'm definitely erring on for this one and one that we'll talk about coming up, too, actually, that opening the holiday season will give them lots of time to really start picking up momentum, and the holiday box office was not amazing last year in terms of huge movies, but I think that because it was a little bit slower, and we even did see things like Migration, Anyone But You, and Wonka still become very successful for themselves, having frankly movies that people are a lot more interested to go see in theaters in the holiday, I would say trio here being Mufasa, Wicked, and Sonic 3.
Right.
That people are a lot more interested in those movies in theaters, and so I think that every boat will be lifted in this time.
I think so too. So Tucker, remind me what you have for Wicked domestically. That is
for Wicked.
Yes,
I have it at 520 worldwide and 239 domestic.
Okay, sounds good. So I think what I'll do is I'll be averaging these to sort of make a compiled ranking for us.
Yeah.
So Tucker, tell me about Mufasa, because Mufasa is my number 5.
Yeah, and I have it number 4. So we're not that far apart,
absolutely
really.
Not.
But this is just one where, for me, I know that the tides have turned on 2019 Lion King because it wasn't very good, especially for us as film fans. But obviously, it did make a lot of money, and I feel like this sits in an interesting middle ground where I am a lot more excited about Mufasa because it is an original story, and it won't have the baggage of feeling like it's just shot for shot remaking things, but with less personality. So it appeals to me a lot more than The Lion King did. And also, The Lion King made a lot of money. So I feel like both markets will be satiated in some way in terms of it having the Lion King aesthetic and similar cast and all of that. That obviously put a lot of butts in seats for the first movie. But I don't think that the fact that the tides have turned on 2019's Lion King in terms of its popularity or how well it's received will be much of a problem, because this does seem like a project that doesn't have the same issues the Lion King did.
And here's what I'll say about that, is that the tide turning on Lion King 2019...
That movie makes so much money, Tanner.
I'm looking at
$506 billion worldwide?
The tide turning is a purely online thing. Normal people don't care about, like... They're like, oh yeah, I guess I saw that.
Exactly. They all saw it, and they all forgot about it, but they don't, like, think back on it in a bad way.
But here's my thing. I think people will look at that and be like, well, it's not a remake, so it's just like a new story. I think that'll turn people off, frankly. Maybe. If they're like, well, it's not something I know, it's not even... Yeah, but it's not at the same time.
I don't know, man. We'll see.
Like, this is a new experiment for them. Frankly, this is, I mean, Cruella kind of. And I don't know, Cruella was... it was pretty good at the box office, ultimately.
You want to check?
I'll check it out.
Not necessarily that we should compare the two.
Because it was May 2021.
Yeah, because also not like we got a 101 Dalmatians remake, 5 years before.
Cruella did 86 domestic, 230 worldwide.
Yeah, in summer 2021. That's a very solid summer 2021 gross.
Anyway, Tucker, I'm just noticing that you're actually quite more bullish on a lot of these films domestically than I am, because I have Mufasa the Lion King making $325, which is $200 million less domestically than the first.
And I have it at 320, which is just a little bit lower.
Oh, okay. Oh, you have your international number first. Yes. That's what I was looking at. My mistake.
I'm not thinking this is going to make 600. It's not going to be one of the highest grossing movies ever domestically.
Okay, my mistake. Anyway,
we're basically the same.
Yeah. I mean, that's frankly what it is. I'm like, I think people will be unsure about this. Sure. It's not a musical. I think the shine is coming off a lot of these Disney live action stuff, as we've seen with the sort of lackluster response to The Little Mermaid.
Yeah. But still the fifth highest grossing movie domestically.
Still the fifth highest grossing movie. It's going to be...
Versus fourth.
Yeah, versus fourth. It's going to be a big holiday movie. Probably the big holiday movie to take your family to.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Next up for me, Tanner.
Yes.
Because we already talked about Wicked, which is in your number four slot.
Yeah.
Is I have Dune Part 2 in my top 5.
Yeah.
And now this, to me, feels like it fits much more in the camp that we saw both Top Gun Maverick, Avatar, and Oppenheimer really succeed in, which is this is a big screen experience. It is marketed as IMAX through and through. It is coming out in a really good slot.
Yeah.
And
also quite adult-oriented, like those films that you just mentioned.
Yeah. And also is new. I mean, Dune came out just a couple of years ago, but this is really the first one that I feel like people are looking forward to and getting super excited for, and I think will be a lot bigger than the first one. And the first one did pretty solidly for 2021.
It did. It got it made about 100 domestic, 400 worldwide.
Yeah, and it's also riding a very unique wave of really prescient casting.
Yes,
it's
got four of like these big, really sought after young stars: Timothée Chalamet, Austin Butler, Zendaya, and Florence Pugh.
Yeah, and the extensive other cast as
well. Exactly. I mean, Josh Brolin, Javier Bardem, so on and so forth.
Ferguson,
yeah.
And so I just have pretty solid confidence that even though I'm not like super jonesed for Dune, it seems like everyone else is.
Yeah.
And to me, this feels like the Top Gun Maverick of this year. Obviously, it's not a legacy sequel, but IMAX, big screen, like really solid window.
Yes.
Popular stars. And for me, mostly it's just a big screen experience that has no, because the first one was put onto HBO Max day and date. This is obviously nowhere close to that. But that's something that undercut that first movie.
It did.
And we just don't have any of those question marks here.
And so Tucker, hit me with your number for Dune 2.
Okay, my Dune 2 prediction numbers are 203 domestic and 700 worldwide.
203 domestic. Okay, so you're anticipating like it makes another $100 million.
Yeah, which I think is pretty.
I have it making where is it? 225 domestic, 475 worldwide.
Okay, so your fall off actually is a lot shorter than mine is, because I'm already predicting my number 5 is barely over 200, and you have another 20 million on top of that.
Exactly. So yeah, I kind of have mine staggered at like $25 million increments is what I have here. So and I have Dune Part 2 at number 9 on my list. And here's what it is. This is really an adjustment that I made this morning.
Okay.
Listening to some prognosticators about this, because this is the newest upcoming film.
Yes.
That we have on this list.
It's either just come out or is about to come out by the time you're watching this.
Yeah, so, I mean, they brought up a point that I don't know if is cogent, but seems right to me.
Okay.
Is that I don't know how much room the Dune fan base has to grow.
Okay.
Of course, I'm still saying it's doubling its domestic pull this time around. And I think that's probably about maxing out. You have it basically doubling too. That's kind of the thing for me is that like it's still like high sci-fi. It's a long running film, and come March, yes, it has a good slot. But March is really where studios have decided, sort of apropos of nothing, that hey, we're gonna start putting out our big movies now. By the way, Dune kind of has 2 weeks, and then it's Ghostbusters, Godzilla x Kong, we're off to the races.
Yeah, but I also do think that Dune could sit in a good place for those.
Of course.
Coming out first and more than likely being way higher quality than those other movies, and having much better word of mouth, and having that big screen experience, and people wanting to see it on the big screen. It has a couple weeks to have its own, like, premium screens, which these other films do not have the benefit of.
Right.
But then it's not going to leave theaters for 6 to 8 weeks.
Exactly.
And so it's going to stick around, have good word of mouth, and so I think it will, regardless of the competition, that's not going to hurt Dune because it's going to be front loaded. Obviously, it's going to be front loaded, but I think Dune is, frankly, unlike a lot of those movies that are coming out after it. I don't see Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire lasting 2 months in theaters.
Yeah.
But I do think Dune will.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm just kind of looking at like the prognostication about the opening weekend too, since it's the one we got coming up here. Warner Brothers is internally thinking about 70 to 90, which would be double what the first one opened to. So yeah, and I'm also counting on that word of mouth a little bit too for it making like 1.25 what the first one made domestically.
Okay, sure.
So I mean that's kind of where I land with Dune Part 2. The first one didn't even end up in the top 10 of 2021. It was number 13 in 2021. So that's why I guess I sort of have it lower, making 225, 475.
But you still have it on your list because you're confident that it's going to be popular.
Absolutely. It's going to be a huge thing. It's going to be huge. All right, Tucker, what's next on my list that we haven't talked about?
Is Moana 2.
Moana 2.
Yeah, and this is kind of a swap between you and me for Dune because I have Moana 2 at my 9 and you have
Moana 2 at my number 6.
Yeah.
So this is also the newest announced film that we're talking about here.
By far.
Announced, 2 weeks ago that they're doing this? That is taking the untitled Disney Animation Thanksgiving slot, coming out the same day as Wicked Part 1, or Wicked, if you're nasty.
Yeah.
Wicked if you're wicked. I have Moana 2 making $300 million domestically. Okay. What do you think, Tucker?
I have it at 220.
220? Okay, sounds good.
I actually don't think that is that different from the first one because Moana is a big popular movie.
250 for the first one.
Moana is a very popular movie, but it mostly is popular now because it's been on streaming for so long.
This is my thing,
and that's interesting because I can see two ways that this is going.
Yeah, I think we're both kind of taking a different mindset about this. Honestly,
either when I think where you're going is because it's been so popular on streaming, it's going to pull a lot of people into theaters,
right?
Or And I think that this applies, and I think you would agree, much more to Disney's films than Pixar's necessarily, is the idea of a new Disney animated movie, when there's so many you can go fucking watch on streaming, and this literally being a streaming movie, we'll see how that actually plays out once the film is actually out, has created the mindset on people that, I can just, watch this probably in December when they when they put it on a streaming.
I think that is, I'm gonna take a note out of your book for Inside Out 2 here a little bit. It's like, it's a sequel.
Yeah.
You haven't gotten one of you brought up Toy Story 4 and Frozen 2, sequel to a massively popular Walt Disney animation film.
Actually just slightly more popular with Frozen 2.
So that's what I'm saying. And also, I mean, if you look at the numbers here, Moana back in 2016 made about $250 million. I'm saying it makes, what did I say? 300. So it's only going to make another $50 million.
Yeah.
It's not like this thing is like, it's compounding, really. It's not like that we're rolling a snowball down the hill here in terms of Moana being...
We're pushing the snowball.
Being the most streamed movie on, I think, of any streaming service last year.
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah. So
it's like that, Encanto, and Elemental, and I guess probably Frozen.
And so that's what I'm kind of rolling with here, is that I do think it'll be an improvement on the next one. I don't think it will be a flop by any means.
Sure.
But I think the presumed quality of this being a reworked TV show and the Disney Plus factor has me a little bit more conservative on my estimate.
Yeah.
Locking in at 300.
Sure. Yeah, and I think the final thing that I want to say about Moana 2 and why I'm not that bullish on it is it is releasing in a crowded window.
Of course.
With the same day, at least as of now, as Wicked,
Yep.
Rolling into other Disney films. Frankly, one we're both more confident will be bigger, and Mufasa and Sonic 3 kind of feeding that same kids fan base, family movie fan base. Actually, all of them kind of sitting in that same window. And I do think that this won't be as high quality as frankly, I think these other movies will probably be better. I mean, I don't really know. It's also just a huge question mark because this is one of the first times we'll have seen a Disney Plus show reworked into a movie. Yeah. Will that really undercut it? Will it make it shorter? Will it make it worse? How is the word of mouth going to fare? Because word of mouth is actually very important for animated films, especially with families. If it's something like it's a bad example, but like Legend of Hank, it's like no one went to see that, and then it was bad, and so it didn't hold. But most animated movies that come out are good, and I think that this is a question mark for me because I just don't know how much. It's also a late decision for them to rework it. Like it is. Who the fuck knows?
So we both have Joker Folie à Deux at number 7.
Yes. Your numbers?
My numbers, I got 275 domestic, 600 worldwide.
I have 600 worldwide, 230 domestic. So
okay,
I think I'm erring this year on lower domestic totals than I did last year because I so grossly overestimated my domestic totals last year that I'm playing a lot safer. Yeah, but both of us are saying pretty significantly that this is going to be quite a bit smaller.
Quite a bit smaller than the first one. I mean, Joker 2019 was a phenomenon that came out of absolutely nowhere. 335 domestic, 1.07 internationally. Billion, that is. And
$1.07.
$1.07. And this is something that they've obviously been keeping a lot of this secretive because it's sort of the brand of this movie to be like, it's weird. It's not really like what you think it's going to be. We're casting Lady Gaga in this. It's a musical. It's not a musical. It's technically the only DC movie releasing this year. It was also one of the strangest movies to get a sequel.
Sure.
On this list here. I mean, like, they're making a sequel to Joker? Okay, man, if you say so. And so I think all these compounding factors will be, I don't think it's going to recapture the magic of that first one. That was really lightning in a bottle, I feel.
I agree with that, yeah.
But I think it'll still be pretty big. I have it at number 7 on my list here because, again, you have a lot of things moving out of its way come October, and then we're right into like Halloween horror movie season. I think it's a good way to sort of get us into that sort of late fall season, I think. And based purely on public interest in this being a sequel to Joker, I think it'll be big. Yeah,
and that's really the thing that's holding up for me. Like, I have confidence I will find Joker Folie à Deux great. Yeah, because not only did I love that first movie, but the idea of making it super weird is a very like bold artistic choice. Frankly, especially one of the least safe choices ever made to a sequel to $1 billion picture. Right. I mean, this could completely alienate its fan base, and frankly, there's definitely a world out there where it isn't even in this top 10 because people they saw the trailers and they were kind of turned away from it, and then maybe the word of mouth and the cinema score won't be very good because if the Joker fan base is going to the movie and it gets like a B- cinema score, people are like, what the fuck is this?
It really matter how it's marketed. Yeah. If people don't expect this to be a musical, they expect Joker again, and this movie could be Joker again, could be completely different. We don't know. Yeah,
but also it's really exciting.
It's kind of
awesome.
It's kind of exciting. It is kind of exciting. So, anything else on Joker Folie à Deux?
No.
Okay. Now, Tucker,
I have Sonic at the same place.
We have Sonic at the same place here too. I have 250 for Sonic, 450 worldwide. What are your thoughts here?
Sonic the Hedgehog 3, I have at 475 worldwide, 223. So yeah, we're about the same.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
just bigger than the other ones.
Bigger than the other ones by about I think I have here about $60 million bigger than Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Oh, okay.
If I'm remembering, I think it made about like 190 domestic.
Sure.
And yeah, I just think it's a big child-oriented sort of movie coming out on Christmas. Yeah, I don't think you can really go wrong.
Well, that's, I think, the thing that really makes me confident this will be the biggest is because the other ones did not have the benefit of being released until the holiday slot.
Yeah, they were both like spring releases.
It was April for 2 and
February
for 1. It's like, what the? That was a Valentine's Day movie.
It was.
Happy 5-year anniversry to Sonic the Hedgehog. The movie, not the character. It's way older than that. But yeah, I just think it'll be bigger because it's releasing in a proper slot, and they're also marketing this like pretty well. I mean, you don't have the question mark of like That's that second one, which was released in early 2022, just coming off late 2021, which was great, but not like, okay, we're back, but also are we back this year? It's hard to tell. I just think that this is going to be like, this is comfy and solid.
I think you look at like growing interest as the series continues, and also that big holiday slot. It's two factors that I think are quite strong for this.
And they're also marketing it indirectly through the Knuckles TV show.
Yeah, honestly.
If that is popular, that suddenly puts a lot more eyes on that brand.
There was concern about Jim Carrey coming back. He's back, that's going to be a draw in itself.
Yeah.
And Tucker, we talked about Dune Part 2 already, which is my number 9. So we both have the same number 10 here. And I have something to reveal to you, Tucker. I had Venom 3 in this number 10 slot until I saw that you had Twisters. And I'm like, oh, let's just keep it at 10. Because I was like, maybe Twisters would be there, and also I want to put Twisters there. Yeah. So let's put Twisters there.
Well, I want to put Twisters here because not only was that trailer very good the other day, not only do I want something new and interesting to be on here, because this is, obviously Twister is a sequel, but it is not frankly, in a genre or obviously a series that has been represented a bunch lately. But I also think that much like what I said about Oppenheimer, Avatar, Top Gun, and Dune, this is a big screen, go to the theater and see something crazy happen movie. It's releasing in a solid window. They're positioning this as a big summer blockbuster. It feels very new. It has that nostalgia bent to it, but it is not so based on nostalgia to where it's like alienating for other people. I think this is just, and frankly, I'm putting it here as in number 10 as I can't have it off my list, but I think it could be bigger, frankly. Because
I hope. God, that's all I want. If this is a fucking Top Gun Maverick situation, I will karate chop this table in half when we're talking about the box office results for Twisters.
Okay, we got a second one.
We do have a second one. I'd be so elated because this movie looks cool. It's a fucking return to disaster movies. It's based on a movie that I have a lot of nostalgia for, frankly, because it's one that my mom showed me a lot when I was a kid, and it's got like. We're talking about Dune 2. This has also got like a quietly kind of like a young and upcomer cast, not quite to the same degree, but Glenn Powell's like 30, so I don't know if you want to call him like a young star.
Well, he's a young. His star is young.
Exactly.
He's only been a star since mid 2022, and then he's had 3 or 4 like movies that have really started putting him on the map, and now. He's the lead of this movie.
You've got Glenn Powell, you got Daisy Edgar Jones, and then you have some people who I'd like to see pop up in more things, like Brendan Perea, for example, or Anthony Ramos is kind of like popping up in things more and more. So I like this cast. The CGI doesn't look like dog shit. It looks really fun and interesting and simple, frankly. And so I'm like, I think audience will glom onto that. I'm thinking 175 domestic, about 350 internationally or worldwide. I think this has a sort of a interesting pull that like it seems very. This could be a turnoff though too for international audiences that it's very American. It's like takes place in the Midwest. It's about guys wearing cowboy hats. But I think that the simplicity of that premise could also be a draw for outside audiences. I don't really know.
Yeah. So I have my numbers prediction for Twisters is a lot higher than it indicates it being on number 10 on my list. So it doesn't line up, but and maybe that was a mistake of me misordering things. But I have it at 535 worldwide and 215 domestic, which is actually a little bit higher than I have some of my other movies. But it's in this mix. And the fact that it's in this mix is already exciting.
Yeah, I think so.
But Tanner, the bubble's pretty big in terms of what could slide into these bottom like 4 or 5 slots of that top 10. Like we're pretty comfortable saying like, okay, that top 5 or 6
seems pretty safe.
But the bottom 4, there's like 5 or 6 other movies. So like, oh, no.
I just want to run through these because I do want to get to the studios here as well. Run through other options that I have. Venom 3, like I said, did have it in that number 10 spot, swapped it out for Twisters. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, opening up this summer, Labor Day, kind of going to be a big deal. The Garfield movie, coming from Illumination.
No, Sony.
So, I'm sorry. Yeah. I was thinking Chris Pratt.
Yes.
Chris Pratt's in it. Iconic animated character, but like, is the love there for Garfield? It's not really a.
This is the true test of that.
Exactly. But it looks silly and fun enough that it could be big. Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Will that one really take off? Sort of past the other installments?
That's a questionable one for me because I think it'll be big, but I think it'll be mostly international.
And of course, as those ones often are.
A pretty low chance that it makes it into the top 10 a domestic grossing, but I think that it will regardless be a big movie and a big success.
Yeah.
Some other ones that you haven't mentioned yet: Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire.
Yeah.
I think one thing that is really leaning me towards that being significantly bigger than Afterlife was is that the original Ghostbusters cast is
back.
They're back in a significant capacity rather than cameo capacity. Kung Fu Panda 4, first animated movie of the year. Only animated movie for like fucking 6 weeks.
They are. Audiences are quite starved for family content here.
DreamWorks, discounting Ruby Gilman last year, has been putting out movies that are more and more popular. The Fall Guy has a really interesting summer slot where it could either be a really disappointing start to summer or actually really exciting and big for that one specific movie. And anything else?
No, you mentioned The Fall Guy, which was kind of like the last one I had a prediction in for. Oh, wait, hang on.
He's got some. Oh, God. Ow.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, well, there are some other movies I'll quickly go through while you're running. Quiet Place Day One has an interesting window as well. Quiet Place is a series that is growing, and this is being positioned as a blockbuster, which the other ones weren't. Gladiator 2 is a big question mark because Ridley Scott has made movies that made a bunch of money, but who the hell knows? And also, another massive question mark is the Horizon movies.
Yes.
Who the hell knows if those are going to be big?
Speaking of, I have in my hands, folks,
Secret Ballot.
The Secret Ballot, yes. The ballot of one Abram Buner, friend of the show. I'll just run through it.
The Ballot of Snakes.
Number 10, he has Horizon Part 1. Interesting. Number 9, Karate Kid. Did you mention that while I was gone?
I didn't, because I don't think that's going to crack the top 20.
I don't know. Could have a nostalgia factor. Who's to say? Number 8, Joker Folie. Number 7, Deadpool and Wolverine. Number 6, Inside Out 2. Number 5, Sonic Hedgehog 3. Number 4, Dune Part 2. Number 3, Mufasa the Lion King. Number 2, Despicable Me Part 4. Yeah. Despicable Me 4. And number 1,
Last of Us.
Moana 2.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's got largely similar movies.
Yeah.
But his order is so fucking different from ours.
And very wrong, obviously.
Yes, very, very wrong.
All right. Folks, we're back in different clothes because it was simply too much movie to talk about in one recording session.
I couldn't take it anymore.
No. Yeah, Tucker had a nervous breakdown. We had to cut. It was a whole thing. Anyway, Tucker, now we're here to talk about the upcoming slates for a number of studios.
Yes, basically all of them.
Yeah, basically all the big ones. We're going to start with Universal.
Yeah.
The big dog of the box office last year, anyway.
Yes, and they're also, I think, again, this year going to be one of the more interesting ones to talk about because they cover basically every genre and have movies across almost every month of the year. And they even were, they still have some that we don't know that much about, even to this point in the year. And even just as of less than a month ago, they're announcing another movie for this slate in Monkey Man.
Yeah.
So, March, coming up soon. The box office has been dead in January and February.
Especially in terms of children's family programming.
None of it.
None of it. Yeah. There's nothing. People are starved for it. This last Kung Fu Panda 3 was a little bit of an underperformer, as I understand it. Yeah. But I think
it also released in a very busy season.
2016.
The movie came out in 2016?
It did indeed.
Jesus Christ, it's a long time ago.
Yeah. But anyway, Poe's back.
Yeah.
Poe's back, baby. Better than ever. Awkwafina's there, I guess.
Which obviously skyrockets your box office.
Absolutely. Always. And then obviously you have some things that skew toward more the adult audience in Monkey Man and Abigail coming in April.
Yeah.
And they're kicking off the summer movie season, Tucker.
Yeah.
With The Fall Guy.
Which is a pretty rare thing for Universal because this slot has been saved early May has been saved basically for Marvel movies, which they've kind of just locked down those release dates.
All the Avengers movies came out on that first week of May,
and then sometimes some other superhero movies, but always superhero movies. And so not only is The Fall Guy not a superhero movie, but is a Universal movie,
right?
And so I think it's pretty cool that we're now getting a little bit of variety in terms of the cadence of films coming out, and mostly that's a symptom of the fact that Warner Brothers is shitting themselves and Disney is shitting themselves.
Yeah.
But Universal's here to pick up the slack. I mean, this is a really, really good slate.
It's a really solid slate. And then, I mean, yeah, then you also obviously have the movie that we have the most faith in going into the summer, Despicable Me 4, and then one that we are both, sort of crossing our fingers for.
I think it's the one that we have the most personal faith for.
Yes.
It's like
Twisters.
Dog.
Coming out in July.
It's the one that makes us say dog most.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Then you got some horror programming again in Speak No Evil. That is an American remake of, I want to say, I don't know, one of those
a Dutch movie.
Yeah, one of those wacky Slavic.
Danish, maybe.
Yeah, not Slavic. Sweet, no.
No, you're...
Nordic.
Yeah.
Nordic is the word I'm looking for. The Wild Robot, which is another original DreamWorks project here. Yeah.
Which is interesting because that's another one we don't know almost anything about.
Right.
From what research I was doing, it seems like this actually went into production somewhat recently in terms of like actually starting animation. But DreamWorks has been doing very, very well in the last couple of years. And so... I also think it's really cool that this is kind of getting a... Actually, no, it's not getting a premiere slot. It's just kind of it's a weird slot.
Yeah, like late September is not typically a good thing, a good spot for things, but also I'm sure it'll be fine. They have...
it'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. They have a very nice right before Halloween spot for their Dooku-adjacent film, The Wolfman. Yeah. Directed by Lee Winnell. He's back. He made that the very pre-COVID actually. Smash hit that was The Invisible Man.
Yeah, which is a very good movie.
Yeah,
and I'd say one of the best modern horror remakes.
Absolutely.
And so I certainly have faith in this. Now, Tanner.
Yep.
I don't have faith that this movie comes out in October. It has not started filming yet.
Interesting.
They just recast the main actor a month ago.
It was gonna be Gosling for a long time, I think.
And now it is Christopher Abbott.
It is. Yes.
Yeah. So obviously, boom, box office.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know if this is a shoot that's going to take a long time, but it's also going to be visual effects heavy, obviously, or practical effects heavy if they want to go the route of like the Joe Johnston film from 2010. I don't know.
Yeah, so if it is
like a Wolfman.
They do have pause, Tanner. That's a good one. Clever?
Thank you.
Timely. Yeah, if it is a short horror shoot, this movie I don't expect to be particularly long. Horror shoots usually don't take a very long time. And if it is practical effects, which would be very, very cool, and I think would fit a little bit more with Lee Winnell, he likes having his movies a little more stripped down.
Right. Well, because obviously they did practical effects for The Invisible Man. They made that suit for real.
And they also turned a guy invisible for real.
Yeah.
With visual effects.
I mean, the real thing about Invisible Man, though, is that for 90% of the movie, you don't need to have any actor or any visual effects on set because you can just shoot an empty room.
And like, oh, God. But anyway. You can shoot a very dark room with like a growling sound effect played over it. And that's The Wolfman.
And then there's another movie that we both have in the top 10 domestically in Wicked or Wicked Part 1. They seem to be just sticking to Wicked. And to round out the year with a nice Christmas time spot, wanted to go see with the family, Robert Eggers' Nosferatu.
Yeah, that's a really weird one because that actually filmed a while ago. So kind of opposite of Wolfman. It's coming in terms of when it was filmed, but it's coming out afterward. And it's coming out in December, which, Dan, I cannot remember the last actual December horror movie.
Yeah.
I mean, even Violent Night was, that's like a horror action.
It was like December 1st or 3rd or something like that.
So I honestly don't know if it sticks to this release date.
Okay.
If only because December's like basically untested waters for horror movies. But also it's filmed a long time ago. So it's far, far into post-production. And so you could see this being moved up. I mean, they don't have an August movie. I don't know if they want to send Robert Eggers to die in August.
If they honestly don't shoot The Wolfman in time, this would be a perfect one to swap in the Halloween slot.
And frankly, I can see them just swapping these two dates because if they have this strange confidence in maybe counter programming by putting out a horror movie in late December,
right?
Wolfman will do just as fine there as it well, who knows?
It won't. It would do much better. Any horror movie is going to fare much better in that Halloween time slot.
But then maybe they want to give Robert Eggers a chance and have Nosferatu be the big thing. And frankly, I think Robert Eggers is a more interesting director. And so I think so too. I think putting him in that prime slot might be a little bit more interesting for Universal, but also I think they want their bigger brand in Wolfman to be the thing that really drives them. But I really like this slate. I mean, we've got 3 animated movies. We've got we got 4 or 5 movies that we're thinking could be in like the top 10.
Yeah.
We've got a really good slate of horror movies. We got a couple of action hitters. I mean, this kind of covers all of the banks.
It runs the gamut, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm personally like, I have like an interest in these. A lot of these movies are there's quite a bit of new IP here in terms of things that are like, obviously Despicable Me is well tested, but and Kung Fu Panda being a kids movie, but Monkey Man is new. Abigail is a Dracula's daughter, but it's a horror movie. It's new, and it's also called Abigail. It's not like people are going to see like, oh man, the new Abigail movie. The Fall Guy, I think it's technically based on something, but it's like a
TV show from the 80s or whatever.
Twisters is a disaster movie. That's untested waters for modern cinema. Speaking of Evil, that's horror. Wild Robot, new IP. Wolfman.
I think Wild Robot's based on a children's book.
No, I know, but it's not.
Oh, I see.
And then Wicked, even though it is based on a legacy IP. Oz? What was it? Oz the Great and Powerful.
Oz
that's like last time we like tested a live action Wizard of Oz movie. So they're kind of leaning into new stuff this year, which I think is really, really cool. And frankly, kind of like most studios don't do that. So
I mean,
thank God for Universal.
We will see that with people like Warner Brothers, for example.
They are up next.
Okay, so Warner Brothers starting off the year big. Speaking of how they'll be kind of like bringing in the chair in March.
Yeah.
They're kicking it off the month with Dune Part 2.
They are, yes. And by all accounts, it's awesome. Yep. And by all accounts, because people are so starved for a big movie experience, this thing could be gangbusters.
Yeah, I think so too. And then you have Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, which these movies always do solidly. Godzilla vs. Kong was actually like a COVID era kind of hit relatively.
But also day and date.
Exactly. For coming out day and date, it actually did quite well. Yeah. I think it was the best performing of those films that they launched day and date too.
Yeah, I mean, what's the competition? Matrix Resurrections, In the Heights, like
no, when they're
Space Jam,
Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But yeah. And then we're rolling right into their summer movie season, which encompasses Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, going back to that with George Miller. It's been 9 years.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time since the audiences have seen Mad Max, have delved into the hellscape of Australia.
No one has watched a Mad Max movie in 9 years.
That's
Holy
true.
Shit.
It's weird. And then you have The Watchers, which is coming from M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, her directorial debut.
Ishana?
I believe that sounds right, yeah.
I just want to get that right.
Yeah.
It's her directorial debut. We're not familiar with her. So,
right.
But technically a Shyamalan movie. We can assume that she has inherited some of the
skills. She's worked on the last couple. I think she kind of like was second unit director on Old.
Yeah,
and
Shyamalan,
Yeah, and then obviously was also involved with Knock at the Cabin as well.
And I'm sure M. Night is involved in this in some way.
Absolutely,
He's probably a producer, but I'm sure they were like sitting at
collaborating,
home, working like, oh, that'd be a cool idea. We should do this.
And then, Tucker, we have a big gamble.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we've really talked. It's been a couple days since we recorded the first half of this. I don't know if we talked about Horizon: An American Saga.
No, we didn't, because neither of us actually were confident enough to put that in our top 10 or put it in our bubble. But this is something that at the beginning of the year, if we're covering our bases, we have to be honest and say
we don't know.
This could be big.
Yeah. Speaking of, Tucker, you said disaster movies, untested waters. Westerns are massive untested waters for modern moviegoers. Yeah. This is also sort of Kevin Costner. He's directing these. He's headlining these.
And he hasn't directed a movie in 20 years.
Yeah. It seems to be a sort of like cashing in on the recognizability of his sort of star power now since Yellowstone.
But honestly, that's a really good idea, because if you think about the popularity of some of the modern television shows that are like really, really big, and or some of the things that people still come to in terms of streaming content, though I actually don't know much about Yellowstone. That's honest. Is that a
Paramount Plus?
Okay, yeah. And it's huge for them.
It's why people have Paramount Plus.
Yeah. But if we think about all these shows like, I don't know, the Succession and The Bear and Ted Lasso, if you take actors and genre from these very popular TV shows and are able to repackage them in some way for a big theatrical release, I think that could actually be something that, if Horizon does well, gears other studios towards hey, we have these TV shows that are in genres that are untested, but are popular on television.
We've had this era of prestige TV for a while, of streaming TV that people stay home, and some people have attributed the sort of maybe the lackluster box office post-COVID to that. People getting more trained of staying home, watching their big marquee shows.
Yeah. But all these studios are getting scared that they're not making as much money in the box office as they used to.
Exactly.
What can we do to put butts in seats? And maybe it's test untested genres like the Western.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as many people are sort of prognosticating that we might be in the tail end of the prestige TV era.
Sure.
We might.
Why do people believe that?
I mean, just because I think there's more of an attempt to be like, hey, this is a big show, and the audiences seem to be rejecting them more often than they used to in the past. That being said, I think it's a smart idea to do what we're kind of saying, Tucker, where you're sort of cashing back out.
Yeah.
We're taking what worked and we're putting it back in the box office. We're doing a hot swap.
Yeah, and it could be big for both parties involved because if you think about Westerns and the spectacle and Kevin Costner and the popularity with Yellowstone, that is something that is grand and operatic, but it doesn't have the scale of something that you are allowed to do on a big screen and with a much bigger production budget.
Although we're saying, it could work for this reason, could work for that reason, it could also be a flop. Let's also put that out there. They're going for like a 2-parter sort of thing. And as we know, I mean, as I think people in studio heads have sort of turned on to recently, putting Chapter 1 in your title might not be the most attractive thing to a more casual moviegoer.
Maybe.
Like, it's not going to be the complete story. I have to go see the next one.
To be clear, there's no marketing for this movie.
No, absolutely.
They absolutely could change it and could make it Horizon American Saga. The Frontier Begins, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, they could easily call it that. But I also do think that it will be very clear from the marketing that this is a part 1, but that part 2 is like coming out your ass right now.
Yeah.
And so I think that could negate the issues that come with it being like, oh, this isn't the complete story.
I have to wait 3 years to see the next one. Yeah, that's a good point too.
But Tanner, the plans are not that this is a 2-part saga. This is like a 4 or 5-part thing. Kevin Costner's got plans.
We just have 2 coming out this summer. Correct. Is the thing.
Yeah. And also, the combined budget of the 2 is only $100 million. And so I do think that Kevin Costner has worked in this scale before, and obviously there is some faith from Kevin Costner as a producer and Warner Brothers as a studio and whoever else is involved to think that this can be something that brings in. But it doesn't have to be huge. If the combined budget of them is $100 million, that's like, okay, if it makes $120 worldwide, we're fine.
Yeah, if one of them makes if they both make like $75 million each,
exactly,
then you're golden.
Yeah. So, and we have no idea what is this going to appeal at all to international audiences?
We don't know what this looks like. We only have the poster.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe it looks like shit also for $100 million.
Also possible.
Anywho. Speaking of Shyamalan, I mean, his daughter, Shauna, has that June 7th slot. He has his new movie on August 2nd with Trap. This is apparently a psychological thriller that takes place at a concert. That is all we know about it. As you can see, there's just like the preliminary, like, coming soon.
Warner Brothers is making this movie.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers gave money to this movie poster.
Shyamalan is always a safe-ish bet at the box office, especially recently. It's not like he's making these massive things that are going over budget. I think he obviously still is a name, a draw.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, so I think they still do fine. That August slot gives me a little pause, honestly.
It definitely does. I mean, that's like my first blush thing. Like, really? Like, what was the last time something was big there?
Yeah. But also, if you're Warner Brothers, you're looking at this like, well, I mean, honestly, good for him for giving up the June slot to Ishana.
Oh, yeah.
For giving her the more prime box office spot, for sure.
Yeah. And horror is also something, well, I mean, I guess we don't know if this is a horror movie. You said that, as far as we know, it's a thriller.
Yeah.
But there probably is some bent to
it. There's horror elements. It's Shyamalan. That's what he does.
But that genre doesn't, I'm sure this isn't a huge budget movie. I mean, M. Night Shyamalan loves to self-produce his movies, have them be a lot smaller, have it be a faster shoot schedule and turnaround time. So it doesn't need to be massive. And horror does consistently well, especially because the budgets are low. So I don't think that this movie will fail for its budget, but I do think it's a little bit unfortunate to put as creative and interesting of a name as M. Night Shyamalan in kind of the death trap that is August. Like,
yeah,
if you think about January and August are like the 2 months where like
we're sort of coming down from the movie seasons, the holiday and the summer. At the same time, though, it seems as though studios en masse are sort of cashing in on the idea of people going to movies still in August. I mean, they're putting Deadpool and Wolverine at the end of July, last week of July. So if they want it to have legs, they're cashing in on the idea that
and so
people
this
will be
is
going
actually
to movies
kind
in
of
August.
the counter-programming
for honestly.
Deadpool and Wolverine because it's only the week later.
Yeah.
And usually people avoid that week before and week after the like tentpole movie.
Right.
But then Tanner.
Yeah.
Just I guess it's 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's in that week between, but Warner Brothers double hit in August.
Mm-hmm.
Horizon American Saga Chapter 2.
Yes.
And so we're talking less than 2 months later. Actually, significantly less than 2 months later. So that's like 6 weeks apart.
Yeah.
Which is, I actually find kind of cool. Because the idea that we're trying new things to like try to get people back into the box office and make things an event. This could either completely backfire on them, or as we were talking about with Horizon, or 6 weeks later, it's like, oh man, that was pretty cool the first time.
Yeah.
I'm still in the mood for it.
Yeah.
I'll go back and see the second one.
Do you want me to tell you what's in between those two, by the way?
Yes, I do.
Borderlands is August.
Sure.
We'll
I should have thought about that.
We'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Labor Day.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I don't. There's something like it doesn't spell doom immediately for me.
No.
I mean, this is a beloved like. I don't know if you can even call this a cult classic anymore. This is just kind of a classic from Tim Burton.
Yeah, I think it's weird enough to where it feels like a cult classic,
right?
Even though like no one's going to say like Beetlejuice is a bad movie, or an unpopular movie,
right? It's massively popular. It has, of course, taken. How has it been 40 years since the first one came out? Like,
and Michael Keaton has only gotten wackier.
Is the cachet still there for Beetlejuice?
I do not know.
For Tim Burton especially, it seems to be slipping away.
I mean, when was the last time he made
Dumbo?
A financially successful movie.
Ooh.
I don't think Dumbo was.
No, I don't think so
successful. Let me just get a Dumbo. You keep talking about Tim Burton.
At the same time, we are bringing back our legacy cast here.
Oh, man, why did that cost $170 million?
We're bringing back Winona Ryder and
Michael Keaton,
obviously, and Jenna Ortega is in this one. That's a big draw. That's going to be a big... I mean, especially when you're sort of matching it with the persona that she's built around her Wednesday character well. Sort of this Burton-esque... Actually, he's literally a producer on that. But yeah, I think it'll be matching up quite well. So it's a very popular show. Could bring people in.
Yeah.
September slot's kind of a question mark for me.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is, but... Also, we've had in the last couple of years two reasonable hits come out. One being a very big hit, which is Shang-Chi, came out in this slot.
That's good.
And then last year was Equalizer 3, which did very well for itself. It's the exact same slot.
And obviously those.
Oh, okay. Also, Tanner, Catherine O'Hara and Willem Dafoe.
Okay. Willem Dafoe.
And Monica Bellucci.
Oh, all right.
Burn Gorman.
Character actor Burn Gorman. Awesome. Love to see that.
I also think that's very awesome. That's called Beetlejuice.
Yeah, it's clever.
So
it's very clever.
Funny.
And Tucker, shall we roll right into talking Joker Folie à Deux?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I think I'm just looking at Tim Burton.
Sure.
Alice in Wonderland was like his last.
Oh, yeah, and that meant like $1 billion.
Yeah. But that was 14 years ago.
Yeah, it was like 2010, 2011.
Yeah, 2010.
Yeah. Joker Folie à Deux.
Joker, the new Joker.
So we talked about this already a little bit with, hey, is this going to be as big? Is it not? I believe we incorporated the quote from the cinematographer there about how it's not really a musical. Yeah. It's just a movie that has music in it. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? And what does that mean for Joker Folie à Deux recapturing, again, like I said, I don't think it can recapture that lightning in a bottle of the first one.
Yeah, I don't think it can recapture that lightning in the bottle, but I also don't think it's trying to, because this is a weird sequel. Not only is it a weird sequel, just period, because why is Joker getting a sequel?
Well, Tucker, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's insane.
It's so normal to a guy like me.
It's very normal to us, of course, though.
But it doesn't seem to be trying to recapture that, because it is not just doing Joker again. And frankly, if they were just doing Joker again, put out in the same time slot, it'd make $1 billion, or make a lot more.
Yeah.
But they are doing something a little bit weirder with this, and so that I think it gives me a little bit more hope for this feeling very distinct, and not just feeling like, okay, we're going through the motions again. And it also is positioning itself more as a Actually, no, it's launching that exact same slot.
Exactly.
As Joker.
And other studios have wisened up here. There is a sort of a dearth of films around this.
As of now, yeah.
Yeah, as of right now, they're sort of clearing out because they've learned that apparently Todd Phillips' Joker is a box office titan.
Yeah. And they've been working a lot on this. I mean, this has been in production for a long time.
It has.
It's not like Todd Phillips did Hangover 4 in the middle of it or whatever. But I have a lot of hope that this is going to be good. I don't have a ton of hope that this is going to be a huge box office smash, but it also doesn't seem like a movie that'll cost a ton.
Yeah.
So I don't think it needs to be. It's just, it only needs to be in the cultural consciousness to be like, oh, it's not a failure compared to its first movie, the first movie, which is like an unprecedented success. But I think it still could be successful for itself.
Yeah. And then we round out the year going into the holiday slot for Warner Bros. With Barry Levinson returning to cinemas with Alto Nights.
Yeah.
Robert De Niro doing double duty in a role here. I don't think this one will do particularly well.
No. I think that it's possible that it gets more buzz than your average one of these movies does because Barry Levinson is back. I'm sure Warner Bros. Will market this. Robert De Niro's cachet hasn't gone anywhere. But this is not the kind of movie that is big nowadays. I mean, if this movie came out in the 90s, good God, it would be huge.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy that this is it's just like, you know, a Barry Levinson crime drama. It's a down to earth movie in comparison to basically everything else that Warner Bros. Is putting out with lots of big flashy special effects and stuff. That is getting a full theatrical release. Like, this is the kind of thing that you could feel would, like, I guess, like The Irishman was, straight to streaming. That's the kind of vibe that this gives off. But I mean, we need to challenge that. We need to push back against that.
Yeah.
Not every drama needs to go straight to streaming anymore.
Yes, we can release some of them in theaters. And then for December, to round out the year, Warner Brothers is dipping back in the Lord of the Rings again here.
For the first time in a long time.
For the first time in a long time, and also doing something quite different. This is coming from an anime studio. This is going to be an animated Lord of the Rings prequel with, you know, like English voice actors in it.
Yeah. Do we know anyone in the cast for that?
Brian Cox is apparently the main role here. If you want like a giant sort of the big boisterous war leader, you're gonna get something like Brian Cox here. You're trying to spell Rohirrim.
I did it. I got it right. Oh my God. Brian Cox. Doesn't matter.
No.
Doesn't matter though. This is a bizarre project, but it's really, really cool.
It's really cool. I remember them announcing this probably, I think, back in 2021.
Okay.
So yeah, I was like, okay, that sounds pretty fucking cool.
And like literally directed by a guy in Japan. Like, this isn't just, oh, we're doing it in anime style. This is made by an anime studio.
Yes. He's done quite a few notable projects, including like the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, which was the sequel to Ghost in the Shell. So yeah, I mean they're kind of putting some resources into this one and giving it a holiday slot, which is, I think, very cool.
Yep.
So let's talk about Paramount. Paramount Pictures.
Yeah, they got a little small, tiny slate.
Tiny slate
in comparison to what we've been talking about. But still comfy.
Yeah. I mean, we've already knocked out 2 off this slate, really. Mean Girls was like the movie to go see in January, I suppose. So saving it from going straight to Paramount Plus was a good idea there on Paramount's part. And then Bob Marley One Love, as you literally just told me, is looking to be like a weird smash hit at the box office.
Who knows why?
Looking at probably maybe around $50 million opening weekend.
Opening long weekend.
Yes, 5 days. Yeah.
No, 6 day, because Wednesday,
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh. Okay, never mind. But yeah, so we have 2 movies that have already made money for Paramount and have been surprise hits for them. Or, well, you know, we'll see what the tale is for Bob Marley. Where the movie is barely out at this point in time as of recording. But then they actually go quiet for a couple months, and they don't come back until May with If, which is a very interesting...
Now, what does that stand for?
It stands for Imaginary Friend.
Oh.
I just, the pause, you know, a little dramatic effect. Which is very interesting because I can't remember the last time a new like family movie like this, like live action mix that's not based on a previous IP.
True.
What was the last time we got one of those?
Tucker, I can't think of any off the top of my head, so it means it's never happened.
It's never happened. But I mean, almost every time you think about like, okay, we're incorporating animated characters into a live action sort of family movie, it's always based on like an old IP. Yeah. Things like Garfield or Marmaduke or Smurfs or whatever. Like,
or Sonic.
Yeah, or Sonic. Yeah, like these are things that are tested in other ways. But this movie does not seem geared for me. And I know that people shit a lot on
Ryan Reynolds is in it.
Shit a lot on Ryan Reynolds. But I think John Krasinski is a really interesting creative voice, and having this be his second IP that he has worked on and created.
The cute imaginary friend designs look quite varied and different, and they all have a sort of...
This movie's got whimsy, Tanner.
It does have some whimsy to it.
And we can't really say that for almost anything else that's being released in the theaters.
Yeah.
Especially for live action stuff.
So I guess we'll just have to see how it turns out, because the voice cast is also quite stacked. Obviously, Ryan Reynolds is your like live action. He's the real guy here but also people like Steve Carell doing like the voice of the big purple monster. People know Steve. He's gonna have another big hit. Another big hit with Despicable Me 4 coming out this summer. So. I think it'll be fine. I think it won't be a flop.
No,
anyway.
Yeah, but I also think that I'm just really excited that Paramount has the faith in John Krasinski and Ryan Reynolds to give them the money to make a totally new idea into a like big theatrical thing.
Yeah, and the summer. Yeah,
and John Krasinski is not the one dipping back into like, oh, I want to make the live action adaptation of Calvin and Hobbes or whatever.
he very easily could have done that.
He and Ryan Reynolds developed this idea.
Yeah.
He also gave us A Quiet Place, which is one of the only, we're about to get to, one of the only like successful modern new IP, like totally original IP. And so I think that this operating in a family marketplace, operating in a place where we're not getting Garfield and
well, actually, we are getting Garfield like the week after this.
Sorry, we're not getting like live action Garfield, live action Smurfs,
I get you.
that we used to a lot in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
This kind of appeals to a different kind of market. In
Absolutely,
terms of
it does.
Being a family live action family movie, which you don't get much of.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I will like this movie, but I am very glad that it is happening.
I'd agree. Speaking of John Krasinski and A Quiet Place Day One.
John Krasinski. He's Atlas with Paramount with the Paramount Mountain on his back.
Yeah, especially for their summer.
Yeah.
I mean,
those are the only summer movies for Paramount. Holy shit.
Now, Quiet Place has always been like a late spring or very early summer opener, but this is like smack dab in the middle of the summer movie season.
Yeah.
They're taking
and they're also positioning it as like an action movie.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, they're definitely taking a different hand about this. This is obviously not John Krasinski directing this. No. This is the guy who directed Pig.
What the hell? How do you get that job?
Wait, the director of an indie movie being plucked by a studio and being put in charge of a giant IP action movie? Yeah. Now, unheard of.
Yeah.
Anyway, they definitely are taking a thing of like, okay, this isn't like so much of like a monster horror thriller. This is much more of a disaster. Bridges are blowing up.
Yeah.
There's a million monsters in the street. They're all running down buildings. And Lupita Nyong'o's in this. We're gonna see, for me at least, I'll be very interested to see if someone like Joseph Quinn has the star power to now take up the mantle of the Human Torch in the upcoming Fantastic Four movie.
And also if Lupita Nyong'o can be a box office draw, because she's an actress that everyone respects.
Yes,
I mean, you're not gonna go up
to a great degree.
Be like, you give bad performances. Yeah. No, she never misses.
She didn't give enough performances.
I agree. But she's never been the lead, especially of a blockbuster film. So. This is untested waters in a couple ways, but it also is being positioned as a big summer crazy thing. And it feels a little bit new. A Quiet Place is something that actually does bring people to theaters. A Quiet Place Part 2 was one of the first things to put butts back in seats in 2021. I think this is really cool. And also for me, as a very big fan of the Quiet Place movies, especially that first one, I am also a big fan of lore. You
gotta see how this feeds in.
I love the idea of the first day that this happened and everyone reacting to it, because the other movies were great because they were far into that
400 plus days.
But this is just like a different spin on that. And also it is keeping this IP in different areas to where we're not going to feel like completely like blown out of A Quiet Place when Part 3 hits next year. It'll be back to horror roots, and then we'll maybe have a little bit of context, a little better context. And as as we've seen through the other two movies, the world is kind of like coming back to like fight against these.
Yeah, so there's societies reforming. Yeah, very very interesting.
I'm really excited for this movie. That trailer's really cool.
It is a cool trailer. And then speaking of dipping back into some wells and taking an animated spin to them, Transformers 1 comes out in mid-September.
Weird release date for that.
I feel like if they had a lot of faith in this, that they would put it in June or July or something. Yeah. But also, Tucker, pull up the cast for Transformers 1 here. It is fucking stacked. Sure. I know that at least that Chris Hemsworth is taking up the lead role of Optimus Prime. I believe Scarlett Johansson is also here.
Keegan-Michael Key, Lawrence Fishburne, John Hamm, and Brian Tyree Henry. Those are the 6 that I assume these are all the other confirmed, but that's a cool list.
It is a good list. We don't know what the animation style looks like.
No.
This is like about a young Optimus Prime, so not exactly following a continuity.
How the story of a young Optimus Prime and Megatron went from being brothers in arms to sworn enemies.
So this will presumably take place entirely on Cybertron, which Transformers fans at least have been begging for a long time.
Oh wow, director of Toy Story 4.
Oh, okay.
Well, very interesting.
Yeah. So he's jumped ship over to Paramount apparently. So
I wonder what the animation studio is doing this. I guess Paramount probably has Paramount Animation.
Yeah.
Who have brought
some SpongeBob movies, Rumble, Monster Trucks, Wonder Park.
That's a bad list of fucking movies. Too.
Yeah, that's really not great.
Under the Boardwalk, remember that? It came out like a fucking...
Tiger's Apprentice, that comes out like in 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, well, it's streaming, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. At least the SpongeBob movies do well.
Yeah.
But Transformers 1 is an interesting idea for a project.
I think so too. And I think they're obviously going to be putting some more resources into this than like
anything else.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think this could be good. It could be good. I think I want to see what the budget is on this before I say too much.
Yeah.
Because this could be a Mario or this could be like a Wish.
Yeah.
In terms of budgeting.
Sure. Especially with that weird September slot.
Big celebrity cast, presumably a lot of like fight action stuff going on too. Yeah. Which I think will bring, especially if you want to lean back into Transformers being more of a marketed to children kind of thing, as opposed to 35 to 45-year-old men.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they brand this or what the actual content of the film is when it releases in terms of its tone, because your mind goes animated. Okay, that must be more for children, but that's not necessarily true.
But I think it's important to note that while we've been getting all these live action Transformers movies out in theaters, the brand has steadily been pumping out these shows, these animated children's shows that are quite popular. So I think I
didn't even know those were still going. To be honest.
So I think matching up the display form of the Transformers, so it's not like a live action thing that seems to be PG-13 or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think they could be going for a more child oriented market with this.
Yeah, and then man, they've got some gaps here, but 2 months later, Smile 2.
Yeah.
Now I want to just double check when the first movie came out in terms of what was the release date.
Oh sure. I mean, obviously, I think that was September. That was September 22nd. I want to say
September 30th. We were very close.
God,
we were very close.
Idiot. Stupid.
How could you possibly?
But no, this is being positioned again. We had a lot of competition for studio horror around Halloween 2024, where we're gonna be eating good.
We had a lot of competition last year too.
That's true.
And a good amount of that didn't quite.
Yeah.
Also, one of them was Exorcist.
Yeah, I think they're more positioning closer to the end of the month, though.
Oh, good. Yeah.
As opposed to like Exorcist, which was the first week, ended up being the first week of October.
Yeah. Well, the horror season lasted like 6 weeks last year. It was really funny.
And obviously, Five Nights at Freddy's was like the one that everyone kind of flocked away from in terms of releases. But now there seems to be an attitude of
balance of competition.
Yeah, there could be like, well, we're gonna have the biggest one. No, we're gonna have the biggest one,
which would be really cool.
Yeah,
and especially because Smile was such a surprise smash hit.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first movies, especially for Paramount. It was like, this was going to go to streaming, but also it's kind of sick.
Yeah.
So let's put it out in theaters.
Absolutely.
And now, I mean, I assume that this movie will have a much bigger budget than the first one. I assume they're going to market it way harder. The first Smile worked well for its budget because they were able to do sort of like a guerrilla marketing tactic of like, what the hell is this? This is really strange.
Everyone knows like the smiling people at the baseball game was sort of an iconic viral moment.
Yeah, but I mean, they can lean into that, but also just bigger.
Yeah.
And so I think this could be huge.
I think
frankly.
so too.
And that's really exciting. I mean, I like Smile. Tucker, I don't love Smile, but like
I'm picturing something. I'm imagining a giant smiling face on the Vegas Dome.
Oh shit! Yeah, with 2 smiles on it.
Oh,
yes. 2 mouths.
Yeah,
like maybe
2 mouths.
Maybe he's got a mouth here and a mouth there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Could
Smile
happen.
too. Smile
Could
too.
happen.
Or Smile Deluxe, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. Gladiator 2. Ridley's back.
We'll see.
Scott's back.
We'll see.
There are. I did hear a report that
Imagine all this hits.
That there
this
were
the coolest year ever.
Yeah. That there were some test screenings of Gladiator 2, or what is finished of Gladiator 2 so far.
Yeah.
And the executives are very pleased with what they are seeing.
Sure.
From Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
He could be so back.
He could be because Gladiator is like one of his biggest successes.
Absolutely.
And does kind of remind us of a time where we were talking about like Alto Knights like would have done a lot better if it was 20 years ago. Gladiator was the highest grossing movie of 2000 or like close to that. I think it was certainly up there.
That sounds right.
And it won Best Picture and won a ton of awards and was both financially successful and critically successful. And Ridley Scott has been very, very up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, kind of just been like coasting in the middle.
Gladiator was number 3 behind How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah. But still, 187 domestic. I don't expect that to be recaptured by Gladiator 2 completely.
Yeah.
But if it is marketed properly and the stars that are in this are enough of a draw, this could be really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's also coming out in sort of a busy Thanksgiving season.
Sure.
I mean, we talked about, Alto Knights isn't going to be a lot of competition, but we'll get to Red 1 is coming out the week before this. And then right after 5 days later after this, we get Wicked Part 1 and Moana 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah. For like the family Thanksgiving thing.
So we'll see if this kind of pays off for Ridley Scott. I mean, or it could be a Napoleon situation.
Well, or it could be all of his other movie situations.
Yeah.
All of his other reasons.
Yeah, it could be House of Gucci situation. It could be Last Duel situation.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. I'm quite hopeful.
Oh, no, so am I. So am I. And
especially with the cast for this. I mean, you're getting someone that is quite hot right now, whose star is definitely rising in Paul Mescal.
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal is in this. And you have some returning cast members like Connie Nielsen. Denzel Washington is in this.
Oh, I spelled Gladiator wrong. Wait.
Gladiator.
No, wait. How am I spelling this? How did I fuck this up?
Gladiator 2. Just put the number 2. There you go.
Untitled Gladiator sequel.
Oh, I guess.
I see.
Yeah.
Joseph Quinn also in this.
Oh,
interesting.
Okay.
Meg Calamari.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Love to see that.
And Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
This sounds cool.
Sounds good. Barry Keoghan unfortunately had to drop out, but otherwise he would be another big name on that list too.
Yeah.
Anyway, hopeful for Gladiator 2, especially if it's sort of being hyped up as like, hey, Ridley Scott's kind of back.
Yeah.
And rounding out the
and
year.
Also,
go ahead.
Quickly for Ridley Scott, I really hope this movie is critically successful and like awardedly successful because he's just been kicked and kicked and kicked. He's like, I'm trying. I want to make like a movie that's getting nominated for Best Picture and actress and director.
He got close. He got 2 nominations this year.
Not big ones.
No.
But like he just keeps trying.
He's climbing back up the ladder.
But I make it sound like he's like, please, but he doesn't give a shit.
He does not give a fuck.
Dude, I get to make big ass movies.
I'm making one every year. I'd do multiple if I could.
Yeah.
Sonic 3.
Yeah.
Last movie of the year.
Yeah. A movie
We're both quite faithful in this for being a big smash hit.
Yeah. The only one we from Paramount that we're confident will be in the top 10.
Yes.
Both of us have that in our top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Which would just make sense, honestly. Yeah. And we talked about it already for its prospects.
And it's fun that that's closing out the year.
Yeah, it is. It's good.
Because it can also have very good legs
as
a family movie. Disney, so funny little studio here. We all laugh at them. We all pat them on the back and be like, "What are you doing?" Because they were able to like kind of turn around their slate a little bit within the last month.
Yeah.
Because before the last few weeks, we only knew of 3 movies releasing, and then they added 2 to that slate.
They did add 2.
Which is better.
One that I don't think will make any waves, funny enough, because it's about a woman in the sea. And one that'll make some waves.
Which is funny because it's about a woman in the sea.
Yeah. Two female sea-related films in The Young Woman and the Sea and Moana 2.
Have been added to the schedule on top of the other big hitters, all three of which we've talked about. We also talked about Moana too. But Inside Out 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Mufasa the Lion King.
Yeah.
There also is a September untitled Disney film.
Some people are apparently there's rumors going around that might be the live action remake of Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, that'd be very interesting.
That was supposed to go to Disney Plus, but they are pumping the brakes on that.
Yeah. And this will be a really interesting deciding factor for Disney. They're taking a little bit of a down year. I mean, the ones that the big movies they're putting out should be comfortably successful, but they're not hitting every month having a tentpole title or every 2 months having a tentpole title. They're taking this a little bit lighter, but I also think that for me, it signals a good direction to pump the brakes because we've seen them go for quantity instead of quality. We've seen them put so much resources into so many Disney Plus projects that are not panning out for them financially. And so if they're pumping the brakes, maybe this is not the year where the quality ends up like coming to the forefront because these movies were made before.
We are dialing down on the quantity before dialing up the quality.
Yeah. But I also think that it's exciting for me, even if the movies aren't necessarily great, that they are shifting gears from multiple projects, potentially 2 to 3 projects that were supposed to be streaming, and now we're going back into theaters. And again, very important that Disney is fighting back against this, I'll wait to watch it on Disney Plus mentality.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're doing what they can, I would say. And, you look at this and you're like, Disney, what's going to happen to them? But you also have to remember that we have 4 of these in our top 10 predictions here. So they're going to be just fine based on they're still putting out their big hitters for the year. Just the supplemental, like, Haunted Mansions and stuff like that are missing here.
Young Woman in the Sea is really weird. But also, it seems to just be like a drama. And so, like, okay, fine. Here's the thing. Like, I'm not very excited for Young Woman in the Sea. I'm so excited that a drama that was supposed to go Disney Plus, starring a pretty major star in Daisy Ridley, is going to theaters. Awesome. The world is healing. And does it have to be Young Woman in the Sea that indicates that things are healing? Okay, sure. I wish it was something a little bit cooler. But fine, sure. Put that in the theaters. I don't know if it'll make money.
I don't think it will. I mean, it's coming out. The
marketing hasn't started yet.
No, I can't imagine this is going to peel a lot of viewers away from, like, Mad Max Furiosa or what's the week? What's early June? Hang on.
Hold on. Release date man is having a little bit of trouble.
June.
You can't get it up?
Actually, early June is, like, Ballerina and The Watchers. So, but also this comes out, like, only a week after Furiosa and Garfield.
Yeah, sure.
So,
well, I mean, that's, I think, a comfortable slate of counter programming. And this is a kind of new type of counter programming. Because this is like, if it is just like a drama with a star, it could be one of those things that just sticks around and makes some money and appeals to a demographic that doesn't usually get their movies, doesn't get movies marketed a ton. And coming from Disney, very strange project.
I also can't imagine that they're gonna be pushing this one. I mean, in the lead up to this, they're gonna be putting their resources into Inside Out 2 marketing.
Absolutely true.
Anyway, we talked about all these internal already. Yes.
But it should be a pound for pound pretty solid year for Disney. But it's just there's a lot less pounds.
There's a lot less pounds. Yes.
Which will be a good turn of events from last year where they put out a lot of movies and almost none of them made money.
Right. Talk what's next.
Next up is 20th Century, which again we are talking at them slightly separately. They are owned. There's no technicality. They're owned by Disney. These movies are part of Disney's production slate,
right?
And the money that is made from these movies will be going towards Disney, but in terms of a different vibe and giving themselves a little bit of a breath to talk about, focusing on what 20th Century Studios as a part of Disney still is doing. They've got a interesting lineup here.
They do indeed. Yeah. So
way better than last year.
When we did our 2023 recap, we're like, fucking hey, so sad for 20th Century. But 2024 is looking up.
Yeah.
The First Omen, trailers out, teaser trailers out, looks pretty dope.
Yeah.
It just got an R rating, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
For some like hard R rating, it seems like graphic violence and nudity and shit like that.
Okay.
So I'm all in. I'm all in there.
I mean, we see a lot of horror movies. Not many of them lean into hard R gore anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think they might be trying to
franchise stuff.
Yeah, they might be trying to like sort of break out of like a oh, it's like an Omen prequel. It's like, no, this is a fucking Omen prequel. You had to go see the shit that we're doing here.
Yeah, and the Omen was very big, actually.
It was.
When it came out. Long time ago.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was sort of in a triumvirate on May 24th. They backed off. They're opening that in early May now, May 10th. Good. Probably better for that movie in the long run. They've been pumping this trailer into fucking every sports game, TV advertisement. Anywhere that you look, you're seeing the trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
And it's also been playing for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't pinpoint the first time I saw it because it just feels like a default in my mind every time I go to the theater, any genre of movie, because this is just like a big blockbustery, drama-y, action-y, like it kind of covers all the bases.
It really seems like Disney or 20th Century or whoever being like, hey, you liked these, remember? You went to go see these. It was like 7 years ago, but you went to go see them, remember?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm excited for it as someone who has become a Planet of the Apes fan since that last trilogy ended.
Yeah.
And I like the progression of these movies and the fact that this is a kind of a legacy sequel to
but it's also
of time,
but a prequel also. Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah,
but I don't necessarily know if anything in this trailer that we've seen so far is like, oh yeah, this looks amazing.
What about that monkey saying, "What a wonderful day"?
No, that's great.
What a wonderful day.
He said it like 3 times in the new trailer.
He says it a lot.
Nothing about this like specifically gets me very excited, but it is a little bit different. Yeah. And we're going to see what Wes Ball can do before he turns his sights to Zelda.
That's right.
So I'm excited for this, and I'm also glad that Disney has not completely ringed 20th Century free of like, you can still make big productions. And
one of those is mid-August. We're getting another Alien film. It's sort of making Ridley Scott proud here, as he is. Apparently he's seen, or he read the script for this and said it was really good.
Sure.
This is in production. It's been in production for a while, actually, coming from Fede Alvarez. Yeah. And I mean, all signs are pointing to good. I haven't seen anything that would sort of just point to this being a flop or a disappointment or a sort of, just sort of all around bad film. It's quite hopeful for me, at least.
Yeah. And the cast does not have draw. Yeah. But I mean, it has draw for me because I really like Kaylee Spaney and Isabel Merced. I think they're both very attractive young women. But Alien is a IP with cachet.
Yep.
This seems to be a sort of return to basics horror in comparison to
Alien loose on a ship.
When was the last time we got a horror Alien movie? 3?
Resurrection.
Oh, I guess Resurrection. Yeah.
In like fucking 2000 or 1998 or something like that.
Yeah. So it's been a long time. But coming out in August does not sell me with like a ton of confidence. But maybe I think I need to challenge myself a little bit because if we're talking about all these studio movies that are coming out in August, that I'm like, oh, that's a weird slot for those. Maybe August can be something with a little bit bigger.
It might be just us in the last several years as we've paid more and more attention to box office stuff. There hasn't been August programming.
That's true.
There's been a significant lack of that.
I mean, Bullet Train was solid.
Yeah, but that was like first week August. So like it's a straggler from the summer movie season.
Yeah.
And they close out the year on November 8th with The Amateur, which again just seems to be sort of a like maybe awards play, just kind of like a drama crime thriller of sorts with Rami Malek in the protagonist seat there. Yeah. Rachel Brosnahan, Katrina Balfe, Lawrence Fishburne. Hey, Lawrence Fishburne getting some work this year. Holt McCallamy from Iron Claw. Yeah, just doing some stuff like that.
From a director James Hawes, who looks like he does Black Mirror.
Yeah,
probably TV director mostly.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's about
honestly, I really have no idea what this is.
It's about like CIA terrorist attack stuff like that.
Yeah. But again, variety is the key for this year. That's a movie that we would have expected to drop on Netflix and no one would give a shit about. Yeah. Kind of like The Killer.
Yeah.
But if
speaking of dropping on Netflix, I'm sure this would be a big like #1 show of the year if this was like a Netflix original series.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, I hope that translates over to people going to see it in theaters. Sort of the grab of the premise here.
Yeah.
Okay. Lionsgate.
Big
old slate for Lionsgate.
Lionsgate picking up the slack for the smaller movies.
That's right.
They didn't actually have a massive slate last year.
No.
But they found some solid success in Saw 10 and Battle of Songbirds and Snakes. Mm-hmm. And Creed was MGM. Sorry.
John Wick.
John Wick Chapter 4. That's right. Yes. And so this year they're covering their bases again.
They are.
They're covering their bases with movies that are kind of like bigger movies, but it'll make a little less money, but they cost less to make.
That's true. They do,
and they're just gonna keep putting them out.
So Tucker, just stop me when we find one that we want to talk about. Ordinary Angels, Hilary Swank, sort of like vaguely faith-related, feel-good kind of thing.
Probably will do well for that market.
Yeah. That's on February 23rd. March 8th, we got a Blumhouse horror film here with Imaginary.
Yeah.
I don't see this one being a hit. I think they're trying to
I don't think it'll lose money, but I don't see it being a hit.
They're trying to make it like a weird Megan kind of thing and make Chauncey a kind of a character. It's not working. It's not working. Stop trying.
But if it does.
But it won't. Because the vibe's just not there. The vibes are not clicking with audiences. Because
Megan was vibes
Megan
through.
But we've seen this trailer a number of times with audiences big and small in theaters. No one cares about Imaginary. Arthur the King. That's another like feel good Mark Wahlberg family dog movie.
Yeah, this is one where because it's Mark Wahlberg and because it's like kind of adventure-y in terms of it's about like trekking through the woods and like rolling down rivers and stuff. This is one that I can see maybe having a bigger budget than it should. So I'm going to quickly see if we know.
Okay, sounds good.
Even if we don't know, I'm putting in my bet that this will have a bigger budget than we think it should.
Okay.
Arthur the King
do we know?
movie budget. Oh, I spelled budget wrong. Budget. Yeah, we don't find
out. No. Okay.
We'll find out in a couple months.
Yeah. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Guy Ritchie's back. Yeah. As he often is every year.
He never left.
He's never not around. Yeah. But this one seems to be a bit more of a marquee than something like Operation Fortune or The Covenant. This has a collection of big stars, including Henry Cavill taking up the lead here, but also people like Alan Ritchson, who is quite popular with general audiences for his Reacher show on Amazon Prime right now. Yeah. So
and it'll be interesting to see if Henry Cavill can be a box office draw as the lead,
as not Superman. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But I haven't seen the trailer for this. I'm not particularly a Guy Ritchie guy, but sure.
I mean, I've seen the trailer for it. It looks pretty good. It's like Guy Ritchie World War II killing Nazis. I'm like, can't really go wrong there.
Yeah. Now, April 26th is weird because I believe there are 2 movies releasing. Yeah. One of them is called Unsung Hero. I actually don't remember what that is.
It's another like feel good sort of like people rallying around somebody with disabilities. I think.
Okay, sure.
And then Boy Kills World, which they acquired out of Sundance. I want to say a film festival, or maybe it was South by or something. But yeah, this is like Bill Skarsgård knows kung fu and beats people up.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see this being big, but maybe there is a want for this. Mm-hmm. And Bill Skarsgård is cool. He's a great actor. Yeah. I can't remember the last time he was like an action star.
I mean, John McFore, but he wasn't he was doing people.
Action. Yeah.
He was shooting people.
He was in an action movie, correct?
He was shooting people with a flintlock pistol.
But yeah, I mean, there's not a trailer for this. There's not a poster for this. Yeah. But it could be cool, but there's no vibes to go off of other than I like Bill Skarsgård and it sounds cool to see him beat up people.
Yeah.
Tanner?
Yeah. The Strangers Chapter 1. Now, Tucker, The Strangers was a franchise that you were not familiar with when I sort of ran this by you. The first film came out in 2008, and then there was a sequel called The Strangers Prey at Night, I believe, that came out in 2018. Yeah. These are just sort of your run-of-the-mill, like, home invasion, creepy people in masks kind of thing. Think The Purge, basically. And they are doing something very odd this year with the Strangers franchise. They are apparently putting out 3 Strangers movies this year. The first one opens in May. The other 2 are undated, but seem to have the same cast.
I gave them like general slots if we want to space them out. There's really not much other choice other than releasing in late August, early September for the second part, and then later in the year for the third part. The first movie on a $9 million budget made 83. Yeah. So these aren't aiming to necessarily be smash hits. Mm-hmm. But I assume that because they were able to shoot all 3 horror movies probably back to back, the budget's not going to be huge. No, yeah. They're able to reuse sets and cast and all that. But wild. And Tanner?
Wild that we're getting 3. 3 is odd to me. Tanner, with the same people.
You see what I'm doing, though?
He's cheesing.
I'm cheesing.
He's cheesing.
Why not? Cool. I've never heard of The Strangers. I like horror movies. 3 movies in one franchise in 1 year is a wild idea. But again, we have to be experimenting. We have to be trying new things to put butts back into seats. And so if this first one is Hopefully it's good.
Yeah,
primarily, hopefully it's good.
Mark 1. It's directed by Rennie Harlan, who is sort of a hit or miss kind of guy.
Well, I mean, he hasn't had a hit in decades, but he used to be big.
The cast doesn't necessarily have anyone big. The main final girl of the whole thing will probably be Madeline Pesh, who is from Riverdale, which is a show that hasn't been relevant for about 6 years.
Yeah, but if it comes out and is good and is like a sort of a sleeper hit, I can't decide yet. The vibes will direct me in the correct direction as we get trailers and as we learn release dates and things. And obviously as the first movie comes out, the vibes are either that this will only go downhill because the first movie's bad and then suddenly no one will care. I mean, we'll go see them, but no one will care about the second and third ones. And people are like, why the fuck did you do this? Because there's also a chance that making 3 movies back to back makes them worse. Like if they're just like
diminishing returns. Yeah.
Or maybe the first one is good and it's like, oh shit. The other one's just, like, there's 2 more coming this year.
Remember when they did that for fucking X and Pearl?
Yeah, and also it was a big deal for Fear Street.
Releasing
those back to back. So I like the idea of experimentation.
I think so too.
Of just like trying something new. I mean, I don't think other than Fear Street, I guess, theatrically especially, I don't know if any single movie franchise has released 3 entries in 1 year. Yeah, this almost feels like they're trying to do a like sort of appointment viewing serial storytelling that has been so successful for multiple seasons of a show on all sorts of streaming services.
Right.
We're putting it into theaters. So let's hope that these are low budget. Let's hope that they're good.
Oh, Tucker, they're going to be low budget. Oh boy, these are going to be some low budgets.
Yeah.
Ballerina. This is sort of like really their marquee summer title here. Sort of cashing in on some.
Would you not say it's Borderlands?
No. I think we'll talk about Borderlands in a moment.
Yeah.
But like coming off of last year's John Wick Chapter 4, they're like, okay, we had a John Wick spin-off for you with a star like Ana de Armas in it. I don't know if it'll work out for them because no one from the John Wick trilogy of note is really involved here. I think Keanu Reeves is like confirmed to make like a cameo appearance in this. But if you look at the creative team behind this, it is look very promising.
Chad Stahelski and David Leitch have jumped ship to other things.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're the reason those movies are not only awesome but are widely revered. So, who's directing Ballerina?
I'll pull it up here, Tucker. But
I don't have full confidence in it. I think it's an interesting idea to have a John Wick style female centric action movie. Literally in the franchise, we'll see what that means in terms of expanding the role of it. But we've seen quite a few of these attempted with sort of John Wick knockoffs and they never fucking work. But if it is at least part of the creative team behind John Wick and in that universe, maybe there is a little bit more appeal to this and it doesn't become the 355 or the Protege.
I think it'll just give off that vibe to people though. Director Len Wiseman has done Live Free or Die Hard, Underworld, Total Recall Reboot, Underworld, Evolution, and now Ballerina.
When was the last time he made a movie?
That would have been Live Free or Die Hard in 2000. Oh wait, no, Total Recall was 2012.
Yeah,
so it's been 10 plus years. Chad Stahelski is executive and is executive producer, as is Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
Oh, I totally forgot about this. Emerald Fennell is writing this film.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
What does that mean? Unclear.
But also Shay Hatton. Oh, Shay Hatton did John Wick 3 and 4. Okay. So we'll see. It might be a well-written but poorly directed film.
Are there any other cast members of note?
Let's check it out here. Ana de Armas, Keanu Reeves in a brief appearance, and then sort of your John Wick mainstays, Lance Reddick, R.I.P., and Ian McShane.
Oh, sure.
New cast members include Norman Reedus.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
No Funky Vetus this time, though. Gabriel Byrne.
I don't know who that is.
You recognize his face. He's the dad in Hereditary.
Tanner?
Yeah.
I don't remember the dad from Hereditary. I remember every other family member.
Remember when he lights on fire?
I remember someone being on fire.
Anyway,
Ballerina is a massive question mark.
Yeah.
We're learning a little bit more about it. It seems like it might be creatively and cast-wise more closer than we thought.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm willing to bet, Tucker, when we do get a trailer for Ballerina, that Keanu Reeves' only scene will be in the trailer.
Certainly possible.
Yeah. And Borderlands, August 9th. Video game
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first video game movie we've talked about.
Sonic 3.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It actually feels like it's kind of like transcended that.
Absolutely does. Yeah. Borderlands, as much as we love Eli Roth, Tucker,
yes, we do love Eli Roth.
I've heard him talk about this sort of in passing, especially on the press tour for Thanksgiving, and it seems to be a bit of a rocky road in terms of making this film.
Yeah, I mean, it's been in production for a long time.
Production for a long time.
Also shot a long time ago and then reshot. And
delayed because of COVID, and like the cast had like locked down together in Poland to shoot this thing. I don't know. And then Borderlands is something that like really relies on its production design.
Sure.
Like if you're making a Borderlands movie, you want to have large, expansive, post-apocalyptic deserts and planets and stuff like that. And I don't know if being a COVID lockdown reshoot really lends itself to that.
Maybe, yeah. We'll see in terms of where we don't know exactly where the production time actually ended up, or what the budget of this is, or in terms of Lionsgate. I think this will be the movie that they market the most out of all of this. I think they think this will be the biggest, and I do think that in terms of Borderlands being an untested IP in the
theatrical market,
the actual business, Borderlands feels very distinct.
Yeah, that's
Borderlands
true.
has an identity of crass humor and poppiness and sort of like winking at the camera that we have seen be popular before, even in this August slot, which is where Bullet Train came out a couple of years ago.
Also have to note, the cast is pretty insane.
It's
Kate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, Jack Black,
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah. Like these are not, these are not small potatoes coming into the Borderlands movie.
And so I really do think that if they start the marketing early for this, show it in front of all the big action movies of the summer,
right,
and have it sort of as that last tail for summer action movies.
Yeah.
If it's poppy, if it's colorful, if it's got a cast that people like, if it's got interesting production design, it really depends on the execution of this. I think that conceptually, I think I can see this being really big in terms of feeling different for action and being a new franchise that people are getting tired of seeing the same shit over and over again.
Right.
Borderlands is not the same shit. It is Mad Max with crazy color.
Yeah, I think, you know what? I think that people might be on board for that. This will probably also be rated R. I mean, it's coming from Eli Roth for obvious reasons. I think there might be also a nostalgia factor for people, for like, let's be honest, like male audiences here being like, oh, I remember playing Borderlands and Borderlands 2 like 10 years ago. They're making a movie that it sort of is like going back to those roots of those games. I can definitely see this being a bigger hit.
Yeah.
Saw 11.
Yeah.
Quick turnaround on this guy, but that's okay. They're known for being like quite quick, light on their feet sort of shoots. We don't know what this one's about at all.
No. But do we care?
Absolutely
a single bit.
As long as Tobin Bell is back, and he is.
And he is for how long? We'll see if they keep making these.
Oh boy. But yeah, I mean,
how is this going to fit in? Where is this going to go in the timeline? He's dead for most of the movies, but he's still in them.
He's still in them. They still manage. Somehow they manage with this. I mean, will probably be again a big return on investment here. Yeah. Opening in the same slot as Saw X.
Even if Saw X wasn't a huge hit, in terms of
people
making
lots of people
money, it made a bunch of money for its budget.
Yeah, it made like $80 million on a $13 million budget.
That sounds somewhat correct.
Yeah, 80.
Damn.
I think it made
$13 million.
Yeah, $13 million.
True?
Yeah,
that's really low.
I remember that specifically.
That's exceptionally low.
I think it might have made like 90 plus. I'm gonna say 93 if I remember.
The numbers
correctly.
is taking its sweet ass time.
I'll also mention quickly.
It made 109.
Okay.
Worldwide, 53 domestic, so pretty solid. And budget
13
million. That's so low.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's so good. And I think what is it? Kevin Gruyter?
Gruyter
is back for this one too.
And he did Saw X, and that's one of the better Saw movies.
It is. Whitebird. It's coming out. We'll see. It's still a long way out.
Movie we do not care about.
No.
We may not see, unless it's a big enough meme factor to where we're like, okay, we gotta see it. Yeah. We see a lot of shit, so it doesn't really, like, it's not like that would be a huge surprise for us. But this is just a huge meme to us because this movie was supposed to come out like 2 years ago. It was filmed even longer ago. They don't know what to do with it. It's been, like, shopped around to studios. It's like, dog, just get it out. Just be done.
Why are we kicking rocks over this thing?
Yeah.
I really don't know.
This one's been kicked down the road.
And we like I said, we have the other Strangers chapter 2 and 3 on here, and then they close out the year with a feel good sort of Christmas movie. I think Zachary Levi is in that or something.
Likely place for him to be after Sin for You Guys.
Yeah. It's based on like a kid's book or something. So
sure. Okay.
Best Christmas pageant ever. We'll have to see about that.
There's some pretty good Christmas pageants out there.
Sony. We saw Madam Web.
We did see Madam Web.
Our review's up. You can go watch our review of Madam Web.
Sony's got a wild lineup this year. They're actually putting out a lot of movies.
Yeah, honestly.
And like a solid chunk of them are Sony Pictures Universal Marvel characters movies.
Yeah, there's 3 of them.
But, which is crazy. And we maybe should talk about that a little more specifically. But Sony just was like, we got IP. Let's just make a movie and put it out in theaters.
Yeah. IP such as Ghostbusters, which every time I see a trailer, I'm like, I don't know, guys. I don't know. And you feel differently about this, about like the original cast returning.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the sheen has maybe worn off of Ghostbusters a little bit.
I mean, I thought it wore off in the first movie.
Tucker, that is fair, and I think there's a lot of people who might feel that way. But like, are we gonna like just keep cashing in on nostalgia here?
Yeah, it's weird because it was nostalgia just in like it was kind of like. No, it was no. It was nostalgia in Nino. It was nostalgia in name alone.
Oh, I got you.
Okay, it's Ghostbusters. We got a car. We got a proton pack. You know Ghostbusters. Yeah. That's what made Afterlife a thing.
Yeah.
But this movie, they're like leaning into the New York imagery. The cast is back.
Right.
I don't know. I think that this is a good test of how long can the goddamn IP be kicked down the road.
Yeah, I think so too. And you know what? Maybe this is just me being cynical, but I'm like, not long. I don't feel not long, especially opening like in like a busy March, because this will be 2 weeks after Dune, the week before Godzilla X Kong. I don't know if it has the sort of draw to stand out amongst those. I'm sure it will do fine at the box office.
I think it'll be a little bit bigger than Afterlife. It's opened in a weird period and I don't think had the same appeal for nostalgia as this one seems to be sort of doubling down on. And this is really stupid, but I kind of think the idea of having everything be icy makes it stand out visually.
But, and here's my thing, it just would have played a lot better in the other 2 slots they had for this movie. It was either, like, it's been delayed twice. It was going to open in summer 2023 and then December 2023. And was delayed out of both of those because of the strikes.
Yeah.
So now they're like, summer, it's summer in New York, but it's cold. So obviously you open it in March.
Yeah. I
don't know. Anyway.
But yeah, my guess is if Afterlife made 204 total, 250 or something. And it'll probably be like a $90 million budget or something.
Yeah.
And so that'll be successful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like... No one's freaking out about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which is also a funny name.
Frozen Empire. What do you mean?
Mean, it's accurate.
Yeah, Empire State Building's frozen. Get it? Yeah. Garfield
movie.
Garf.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this.
We did. Again, I'm just gonna repeat what I said. I think this will be fine. I think it'll do fine. But like, I think there's a bit too much an over reliance on like Chris Pratt voicing an animated character.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not Mario, it's Garfield.
Yeah.
Very different levels of popularity.
No, absolutely true. Can you pull up your list and see what other... this is coming out right before Inside Out, correct?
Yeah, it'd be like 3 weeks before Inside Out.
Okay, well, that's spaced out quite
yeah.
enough. Yeah, I don't know. I just think... I think that Garfield as a character, and this seems to have a solid budget behind it. It has the cast behind it. Samuel L. Jackson playing
his dad.
Garfield's dad is not a character I've ever heard of before.
I think, gotta be fabricated. Garfield doesn't have a father.
He's fabricated. I got great news to you about fictional characters.
What?
They're all fabricated. Yeah, I think this is actually quite similar to how I feel about Ghostbusters. Of like, this will appeal to a market,
a certain demographic,
and it can coexist with some other things. The other bigger live action movies around it are, I think, coexist with. It's coming out spaced out enough before Inside Out.
Baby Garfield,
Baby Garfield, a huge draw, huge box office draw. I don't see this movie being like a flop.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I don't think it will either.
And I think that's what Sony is for most things this year. Betting on is like, look, these are not going to be top 10 highest grossing movies of the year.
No.
Venom 3 we'll get to, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of these will like lose a ton of money outside of Madam Web.
Yes.
Or maybe Craven. I don't know. We'll get to
Bad Boys 4. Wild that this is happening.
Yeah.
Remember when they were? I remember, Tucker, seeing just tracking the existence of this over the years. They're like, we're doing Bad Boys 3 and 4. Then COVID. They're like. Then COVID happened. They're like, we're not doing Bad Boys 4. And then COVID ended, and they're like, we're doing Bad Boys 4 again.
Yeah, which I think I understand the confusion and the possibility of this. Like, okay, will it be successful? Is this big? Because Bad Boys for Life actually was big.
Yeah.
It was big.
It opened in January.
It was the highest grossing movie of 2020.
Yeah.
Because it opened in January, there was not a lot of competition. Everything got shut down after March. But because of that, I think they still feel that, like, in an actual box office environment, because that one was as successful as it was in the time period that it was, try again. It's the same creative team. It hasn't been that long. It's weird that we haven't seen anything from this. Like, I don't even know if I've seen a set picture or anything.
No, I don't think so either.
But action movie, IP.
Yeah, action movie IP.
Yeah.
Bad
Boys for Life was big just a couple of years ago.
It was.
It's not like we're going like legacy sequel like 9 or 10 years later. It's like, this is a spaced out sequel, but
another one that Tucker, our elite analysis is it'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It will do, a little over 200 worldwide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It ends with Us.
Hey.
A Colleen Hoover adaptation. Now, in case you are unfamiliar, dear viewer, with who Colleen Hoover is, she is...
Who's the Hoove?
Who is Hoover? She is an author. She has a number of books.
She's a lot of books, Tanner.
A lot of books.
We were at Barnes & Noble the other day.
There's a table full of books.
And there were so many books.
There was
so many books. They all look the same.
They all look the same, and
but this is the one. Apparently.
This is the one that kind of put her on the map initially. This is the one that has a sequel and a prequel book as well. It is sort of like a soap opera plotted kind of thing, but with the appeal of the books being that there are explicit and detailed descriptions of sexual encounters.
Sure.
And they sort of have a nondescript sort of outside appearance, so you can read your sex fantasies in public and no one knows. You can read them on the bus, and no one's the wiser.
Yeah, unless you know who Colleen Hoover is, which apparently is a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you got to be in the know to know, and how many people know? It's impossible to know.
Well, it's not impossible to know because we know that these are very successful. I mean, she pumps out a ton of these for the book marketplace, which is not something that we are into. Yeah. For the female skewing book marketplace, it's not something we're into. But it is something that is very popular, and much like we've seen success with something like Twilight, this is not something that has been tested in the last 10 years.
I think honestly speaking, it'll probably be big. I mean,
I think it will.
It's not like this movie cost a bunch. It's basically just like a small, like, tight knit family drama. It's that's sort of like the drama of it. But like Blake Lively is in it. Yeah. That's the big star here. She's the main character. And I don't know. It's coming out in it was supposed to come out like around Valentine's Day, which I think would have been maybe a better spot for it.
Yeah, that would have been big.
But they're still shooting this thing, or just got done shooting this thing, as I understand it.
Okay.
Literally, it was supposed to come out on February 9th, and on January, like a month before, they were like, "Hey, this movie's going back into production after some delays."
That's not a great sign.
No.
But I also think it doesn't matter.
No.
To be 100% honest, I think that the name recognition, Blake Lively is a star. She's not a massive star, but this appeals to a market. It appeals to a market that has not been spoken to almost at all in the last 10 years, and especially not since the pandemic. And so I expect this to be incredible counter-programming. That just lasts and lasts and lasts, and word of mouth in that market. We got to go see it, like bring people's friends and stuff. Like
was Where the Crawdads Sing a big hit too?
In terms of box office?
Yeah, because that's the most
sure. That's actually pretty good.
That's the best comp, I think, in recent years. I mean, it'll probably be similarly budgeted to this.
Yeah, 144 total
on a 24 on budget. Okay, yeah.
And so I think this will probably cost a little bit more, maybe because it's a bigger name than Where the Crawdads Sing.
Yeah.
So let's just say $35 million budget. 150, 160 worldwide.
That's a hit.
That's a hit.
That's a hit.
And it's good counter programming. It's amazing counter programming.
Yeah. Next up, we have Harold and the Purple Crayon.
We do. What the hell? No, we don't. We have Project Artemis next.
Oops. Oh, yeah.
Which is a co-production with...
somebody else.
Apple.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So they're the ones distributing this.
Right.
So we'll actually talk... let's just say that and we'll talk about it when we get to Apple.
Okay, sounds good.
Because there's not a lot more to talk about.
Harold and the Purple Crayon, what do we got? It is an animated kids movie.
Yep.
Based on a book.
Yep.
Everyone loves Harold and the Purple Crayon. You remember that?
Yeah, you remember that when you were 4?
Craven the Hunter.
Who knows?
Bad stuff, I think.
Who knows?
Bad stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Craven and Madam Web are more nails in the coffin of the superhero genre.
Yeah.
I don't expect either of them to make money. I expect them to cost too much. I expect people to treat them as jokes. And it's fun. It's just so funny that Craven got delayed an entire year when it could have already been out and we could have already forgotten about it.
Yeah. Venom 3, same story. Will be the best performer of all of these.
Totally. And will probably be Sony's best performer of the year.
Yeah. And then Karate Kid to round it out with Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio returning. They just cast the main kid in it as well. Someone I haven't heard of, obviously.
The titular Karate Kid.
The titular Karate Kid. We don't know what this movie is, how it sort of takes place in the same universe as the rest of them, or how these characters are meeting.
There's like different universes or timelines?
I think there's a multiverse situation. No, I'm just fucking around. I mean, it's just like, oh, we got this Karate Kid and we got this Karate Kid stuff. Just put them together.
Yeah, I saw the Jackie Chan one in theaters.
Yeah.
When I was a kid. Don't remember anything. Actually, I remember one thing about it.
Here we go.
I remember that Jackie Chan catches a fly with chopsticks.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's the only thing that stuck with me.
Yeah.
In any capacity, but this is an interesting one because, like things like Alien, this is an IP that's untested in the modern day, and it has an interesting release date.
In theatrical markets, at least. I mean, Cobra Kai has like 6 seasons on Netflix.
That's actually a very good point, and I think we can make a pretty good comparison to Horizon, where it's like this is very popular in streaming. People love this in TV show format. If we're able to capitalize on that market, in something like karate movies or kung fu movies are not made in the theatrical marketplace anymore, and so if Jackie Chan still got the sauce.
We still do. We get plenty of like martial arts like assassin movies though. Yeah. John Wick. We got Boy Kills World and Monkey Man and Ballerina coming up. Silent Night. Like but this one is more like obviously
straight up.
It's straight up just like a karate movie. They do tournaments and then maybe you get some street fights. I don't know.
Maybe, but it could be big.
Yeah, it could be big.
It could be big, but this is very vibe based. I mean, the film hasn't shot yet. Yeah. It's coming out very late in the year. We know nothing about it.
Right. Next up, who do we got?
Next up is
A24.
We'll just quickly go over what they're releasing.
Yeah,
there's only one interesting thing here, frankly.
They've only got 3 dated projects right now. They are Problemista, which was supposed to come out last August, which is now coming out in March. We have Love Lies Bleeding, which is kind of getting some film Twitter buzz, and then Civil War, which we've talked about a couple of times when it comes to A24 at the box office. This is their biggest budget they've ever produced on a massive $50 million.
Yeah.
And
frankly, it was probably hard to get that together for A24.
and honestly speaking, I've always kind of had this feeling in the back of my mind that like with these trailers, is there like a gross interest on the part of the public to be like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, a bit of political charge to it. I see. That could get me in the theater. I don't know.
And it does have the spectacle in terms of you get those shots, like wide shots of
DC being fucking bombed.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, this is like a whole cross country sort of thing. I'm not going to put stock in Civil War, but even though I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I'm not a particularly politically charged guy. Like those kind of movies don't like super draw me, but I want Civil War to be a big hit because that'd be wild.
Yeah.
And that'd be really interesting. It would be very different.
That's my thing. It's like, it'd be so interesting that it might just happen.
Yeah, it might just happen. Or, it is an Alex Garland film. Those movies don't make money.
No.
They don't make money.
But, like, of anything, I think A24 kind of saw the potential that I'm sort of talking about here. It was like, it's broad appeal. It's just like an action war movie that is sort of like cashing in on the political mood right now.
Correct. Yeah. And because it's a year in which there's an election.
Yeah, exactly. And then they have plenty of projects that I'm sure will get limited releases throughout the year, such as A Different Man, I Saw the TV Glow, Tuesday, Y2K, Sing Sing, and Janet Planet. Like Sing Sing will probably be an awards player for Coleman Domingo again. Y2K appears to be a kind of like, what am I looking for? Like a bodies situation here. Again, with
appealing to a more of a teenage demographic.
Yeah, especially with the cast there. A Different Man, probably again an awards player for the same thing. Yeah. And then just some other A24 stuff.
Yeah, and I'm sure
all seems interesting.
Yeah, no, I'll see all of these movies. Yeah. But A24, obviously they haven't dated all of these. They also are not done acquiring movies.
True.
They pick up movies throughout the year. They find release dates for them.
Yep.
Most of their movies that they do put out, they do acquire from film festivals, and so there's going to be waves of them picking them up throughout the year and then giving them pretty quickly release dates.
Yeah,
all the movies are done by the time they're screened.
That's kind of how they got something like, I think Sing Sing is. Yeah. It's actually what I'm very interested to see. I'm really excited for it to come out this coming award season anyway, because it was, I think the cast aside from Coleman Domingo and maybe one other cast member is entirely like real life convicts or ex-convicts.
Oh, okay, sure.
And that's kind of like it's about a theater program in a prison.
Oh, sure. Okay, cool.
So yeah, I think it could stand out a little bit come the award season. But anyway,
Civil War is really the only box office relevant movie here, potentially. And we've combined MGM and Apple here, or Amazon and Apple.
I separated them from Netflix and Amazon Prime, which will be our last slide. Okay. As these are the ones that these movies get put out in theaters.
Yes. And thank God, frankly.
Yeah. So on Amazon side, we've had The Beekeeper already. We're looking down the barrel for challengers. They've got Flint Strong coming out, which is based on a real-life boxer who is from Flint, Michigan. Blink Twice, which is a Zoe Kravitz-directed picture, previously titled Pussy Island.
Yeah.
And
Amazon... You chickened out.
You cowards.
You chickened
out. And then Red One, which I thought was a straight-to-streaming thing, but is not, and honestly probably a good idea to put this in the theaters with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Chris Evans in a Christmas action kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, The Beekeeper's already actually very successful.
Yeah.
Challengers, I'm excited for.
I'm immensely excited.
I don't know if it will be financially successful, but it's very cool that Luca Guadagnino is getting money from MGM to put out a movie into theaters. I mean, it looks good.
Yeah.
I like him as a director. Flint Strong and Blink Twice are we know nothing about them. They're totally just question marks.
Yeah.
But it's, again, cool that these movies are being put out in theaters. They're not obvious, I know what this is, and it will come out and it will do about this much, and okay, it's got these actors, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
They're just interesting movies. And then Red One is obviously the most obvious of MGM's slate. But it could be a weird massive hit.
It could be. And then Apple, they've already had a massive flop with Argyle.
Yep. Third flop in a row.
Project Artemis is like a sci-fi romance film with Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. Yep. So, but heard nothing about this. Yep. So, is this even happening still this year?
Is that even the title?
There's
no
still?
There's no.
And then Wolves is it's George Clooney and fucking Matt Damon. Who is it? Brad Pitt. It's Brad Pitt and George Clooney. It's
interesting combo.
It's a re-teaming of ocean stuff. These are both big box office draws still, as we've seen with Bullet Train and
Boys and
Boat. Ticket to Paradise.
Oh,
on screen.
Yeah, my bad. And whenever I think George Clooney, my mind immediately goes to
his directorial work.
Yes.
And this is it seems to be
directed by John Watts.
Directed by John Watts. They are dueling.
His last movie was one of the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time. Right. That doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything.
But it is cool that he's able to
It
was No Way Home. Sorry, yeah. He's able to escape the blockbuster stuff and make something that is smaller and with these cool actors. And
massive draws. I mean. If this movie is apparently about these.
I just hope this movie doesn't, for whatever reason, cost $90 million.
It's about Clooney and Pitt as these dueling or conflicting assassin hitmen cleanup guys or something like that.
And those are both great actors to portray.
I agree.
Hitman cleanup guys. Let's go.
So I'm very excited to see what this is and how it turns out.
Yeah.
I think it sounds really cool.
Yeah, and Apple's very good at giving their movies full theatrical releases.
Absolutely.
I mean, these aren't it's in theaters for 2 weeks or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But I guess we'll have to wait and see if they've paired up with a distribution studio for any of these.
Well, we know Argyle's already out. And Project Artemis we just had on Sony.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and then Wolf's, I mean, maybe they had one, I just might not have noticed.
Or maybe yet to be decided.
Yeah. And finally, you did Netflix and Prime Video.
Yeah, just to sort of round out the movie diet.
This has nothing to do with box office.
No. So we'll
none
run
of these
through
movies
quick.
are coming out in theaters.
There'll be many more movies because both these studios have only really announced like their first half of the year slate. And notable ones I feel are things like Beverly Hills Cop, which has been acquired by Netflix here.
I mean, actually, I think almost everything from Netflix is notable that you have on there.
Yeah, I mean, Spaceman is another serious Adam Sandler thing. Damsel is like a fantasy sort of send up with Millie Bobby Brown. She's a princess who has to save herself from the dragon. Shirley is kind of like a what am I looking for here? Like a Rustin type film. It's a civil rights biopic.
Sure.
Rebel Moon Part 2.
It is Rebel Moon Part 2.
Unfrosted, the Pop-Tart story is finally coming out.
Yeah, it is.
Development for a long time here from Jerry Seinfeld. Hitman is an acquisition. Everyone's sort of like rolling their eyes and grumbling that Netflix is stealing this one and we're not going to be able to see it in theaters.
Yeah, and see how it does.
But this...
Test the star of Glenn Powell. I mean, but this is good exposure for Glenn Powell.
It'll hit the streamers like a month and a half before Twisters comes out. So... Yeah. And then, Beverly Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy. They're positioning that to be like, hey, the big movie, stay home and watch on Netflix.
So weird. Well, I mean, frankly, I feel quite similarly about a lot of these, is that I can see the appeal of these, and they each have either stars or directors or creatives that are coming into interesting places with these movies. And I would have loved to see, basically all of these you could see getting a theatrical release. These don't feel like straight-to-streaming nonsense. Rebel Moon Part 2 is a big sci-fi movie. Unfrosted has a different appeal because of Jerry Seinfeld. Richard Linklater, Adam Sandler, Millie Bobby Brown, Beverly Hills Cop. Like, these are things that I would have loved to see fill out the slate a little bit more. But also the slate's pretty full. So
it's kind of full. And we've been sort of lamenting like there's too many movies coming out. They're sort of cannibalizing each other a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, Prime Video has some lower key stuff. I really only wanted to talk about the upcoming stuff like Ricky Stenicki, which is Zac Efron, John Cena, and some other like comedy guys. They could have been like a good rated R theater comedy, honestly. Roadhouse is a big one that I want to talk about.
Sure.
Because there's lots of drama surrounding this as we talk about streaming versus theatrical. Doug Liman has been very outspoken about this. He's like, I am not going to the red carpet premiere of this movie that I directed because I am pissed off at Amazon that they're not letting me put it in theaters. Then there's more recent reporting that like they kind of gave him like the Matrix pills. Like, you can either have $65 million for your movie and we put it out in theaters, or you can have $80 million for your movie and it goes straight to Amazon Prime.
Huh. So, do we know what his choice was?
He took the 80 in Amazon Prime.
Well, okay, that's his fault, frankly.
But here's my thing.
Oh no, only $65 million.
I think that Doug Liman sort of thought that what could happen here is, like, streaming markets, it's all up in the air, and like more and more things are going theatrical route. Is like, I'll take the 80 million, I'll be a little bit more comfortable with the production of my movie, and who knows, I could still negotiate. They could change their mind about this.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And it still is a little bit away. I know, actually, it's a month away. It's not coming out in theaters.
No.
But, yeah, I understand that. But also, now just hearing that, okay, Doug Liman got paid $80 million. What's the budget of this movie?
No, sorry. $80 million for the movie is like
the budget total.
You can pick a production budget.
Oh, my bad. I thought you were saying that's how much money was going to him.
No. But like, I've also heard people sort of talk about Doug Liman as a director. He's sort of notable for having some films that have maybe some trouble production or going over budget. I think he might have recognized that, and he's like, I'll take the more comfortable one here. Sure. And Roadhouse looks really good. When the trailer came out, people at my job, the normal people who don't go to movies that often, were talking about the trailer.
Sure.
So, anyway, I guess they'll just have to stay home and watch it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, something that... Well, actually, a lot of people do have Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
But Tanner,
yeah,
that's all movies.
That's all movies.
We did it. We talked about every movie. Ding!
There will be no more movies announced to be coming out this year. This is all of them.
But this exists as an interesting time capsule. Our
pre-trailer, pre-poster, pre-information, pre-marketing thoughts on like almost every movie coming out this year.
Right.
We'll be able to check back in at the end of the year and early next to see how we did.
See how many of these were delayed out of this year.
Yeah,
we'll
totally. But I actually find this year very interesting. Now that we've broken down everything, I'm really excited for this year. Not that it'll be bigger money-wise, but I think it will even the playing field a little bit money-wise because there are so many different ideas in terms of appealing to different markets and having It Ends With Us and Horizon and The Strangers.
There's a lot of weird things
going
on this year.
And as we've talked about a little bit before, the big IPs that usually dominate the marketplace are a little bit missing this year. And so Disney taking a little bit of a backseat, Universal's able to fill in with almost all original stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the lack of a slate for especially a company like Disney, but a couple other studios, and then the massive slates for people like Universal or who else? Sony, Lionsgate, Sony. Yeah. These really massive movie slates, frankly, that just sort of eclipse the output of people who usually dominate the market.
Yeah.
Anyway, very excited for the year of movies to come, Tucker.
Yeah.
We'll be reviewing most, if not all of these.
Oh yeah. And I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited because there's so many question marks.
There's a lot. And obviously, we already know how the domestic box office will turn out because we predicted it perfectly.
Swing.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.